Welcome, everyone, to episode 85 of the Look Out Sir Warhammer 40,000 podcast. My name is Dan, and it's that bit at the beginning of the show where I introduce my good buddy Phil. How is it going, Philip?
I am here, and I'm surviving.
You aren't feeling in the best of states right now, are you, Phil? You're having a bit of a senior moment, you were saying.
Well, exactly, yeah. Once you hit that 40 cap, it just all goes downhill and you steadily fall apart. Bits start falling off.
You are now essentially a declining organism, mate. You're on the downward trajectory. How does that make you feel?
Exactly. Well, I'm just, one step away from senior citizenship. Put it that way.
That's it. You all that lays ahead of you now is a trip to the glue factory. Oh, what a treat.
Well, no, it's either the glue factory or that club where you only play Horus Heresy and bolt action.
That's true. Or Napoleonics. Don't forget about the Napoleonics.
Ooh, yeah.
I reckon you would get well into Napoleonics. I imagine you would, grow yourself an even more mighty moustache and, fully embrace that whole getup.
I've said it before. I do love Sharp. Do love a bit of Sharp. Plus, actually, my granddad was into Napoleonics and he used to collect miniatures. So, it's inevitable.
There we are. Like grandfather, like son. That's how that goes.
Yes, son.
Son. That's it.
That's clearly going on a t-shirt already.
Potentially. We did actually make some progress on the potential of making t-shirts reality, although we won't get into that right now because we don't have anything substantial to update you on. But at some point in the future, we might actually bring t-shirts to life. Not that we are giving t-shirts sentience, you understand. We are simply making them manifest in reality. Wouldn't that be exciting?
I like the idea that you can turn them into sentient beings, breathe life into them, and then they will come alive and probably take over the world.
But if a t-shirt was sentient, right, as you put it over your head, would it be like it was eating you?
Exactly. That's how they operate. That's how they take over the world.
And then as your head emerges out of the top of the t-shirt, would you now smell like feces as they have essentially, excreted you out the top?
No, I was thinking like the head is then someone else's. It's the t-shirt's head, not yours. I feel like we're writing a Doctor Who episode.
Quite possibly. Or again, you're kind of describing the plot of How to Get Ahead in Advertising, which is a fantastic movie. You've seen that one?
No, I haven't. So let's move on.
It's the one where it's a famous British actor that I'm going to forget the name of, but essentially he stresses himself out and he develops a boil, and then the boil starts talking to him, and then eventually the boil takes over his entire body, so his head becomes the boil.
It sounds vaguely familiar, but I don't think
It's incredible. It's a great film. How to Get Ahead in Advertising. It's an absolutely wonderful piece of work. Anyway, I'll tell you what else is a wonderful piece of work. The topic of this week's podcast. What might that be?
Well, as you know from the last episode, we talked about Warhammer Fest, but we didn't quite get to talk about all of it. So there's a couple of days extra. There was Friday, which was the 40k Part 2 day. There was the Saturday, the mystery reveal day, which turned out to be Age of Sigmar. So we're going to talk about those two things. We're going to talk about Age of Sigmar as well, a little bit, because there's some cool stuff in there. But we're also going to talk about what is good about Age of Sigmar that we could port over to 40k as an extra topic. And then we're going to look at this lovely High Lord of Terror and interrogate her crazy stats.
That is how it's going to go. All right, brilliant. But before that, we have a 5-star review.
Hang on a second. What is this? Some kind of review? A 5-star review? Well, let's get into the nitty-gritty of this Warhammer 5-star review.
This week's 5-star review comes from where, Phil?
Is it the... Wait, no, I know this. It's not the Apple podcast of the Great Britons. It is the Facebook pages of...
The Facebook pages of who knows where, such as the
international
anonymity.
Or... what is it? The international waters.
That's it. I mean, who could say for certain? I mean, Facebook is essentially, a nation all on towards itself. But nonetheless, within the confines of Facebook, a gentleman or, female, I actually, don't want to assume, but with the name Ben Kerry, I'm going to probably assume he You know, you never know in the world today, mate. You gotta be open-minded to these things. Ben Kerry has left us a 5-star review, which reads, Phil, 5 stars until 6 are allowed. I love already the general flavor of what we're getting here. I started listening in early December 2020. I mean, where were you? Missed out on some incredible content prior to that, but fair enough. December 2020, when scouring Spotify for something to fill my long road trip, lorry driver, he proclaims, and stumbled across this. That being obviously the Lookout Sir Warhammer 40,000 podcast. It's long, rambly, and though not without structure, relatively informal. Because of the hosts being long-time friends, I mean, again, that's at least how we PR ourselves, right, Phil? We hate each other in reality. That's part of the joke of it all.
We don't talk once the off-air light goes off.
That's it. It's all, you know, we do it all for, I don't even understand what the motivation would be for that, actually, now that we've kind of thrown it out there, but I'll continue on. Being longtime friends, there is a familiarity and banter level that feels natural and hits the mark. There you go, Phil. Our banter feels natural, mate.
Fantastic.
Exactly, and we work so hard at that. And that's why I'm so impressed. All the standard review and new content coverage is here with experienced, in-depth, and concise opinions on the matter. Now, I worry at this point he's not listening to this show, don't you?
A little bit, yeah.
Because I mean, concise opinions. That really isn't where we. It's not really where we shine. But you know, thank you for lying on our behalf. That's
to reel in those new people, those new suckers, to leave us another 5-star review.
That's it, or a 6-star review, as this might be. But it has to be said that my favorite episodes are the ones dubbed as filler, in where Dan and Phil talk to hours on end about 40k and hobbying in general, that have you feeling like you're just geeking out with your friends. Keep up the great work, guys. There you go. That's actually a really lovely review. I think what's really nice about that is obviously, one, Ben has essentially asserted that what he enjoys is when we just kind of go off on tangents and have a general kind of chit chat rather than trying to aggressively structure things. And in a way, that is, you know, something of a virtue of the show, because ultimately, you know, as I've said many times before, surprise, surprise, we don't massively script this thing. We have a broad, loose structure and we kind of talk around it. So to hear that is being positively received is obviously amazing. Yeah, it's just nice, isn't it? It's nice to have nice reviews. I'm still waiting for the day where another 1-star review comes through, though. I'm waiting to be crestfallen and hurt by, you know, some kind of horrible review. Although I think I'll delight in talking through that potentially more. Not that I would encourage you to do that, people who are listening. Don't be mean just for the sake of it, because, you know, words can hurt too. Right, Phil?
Well, exactly. We're very fragile creatures over on this podcast, and if we get 1-star review, I'll cry for a week, and we just won't do it. We can it all in. That's it.
Is that the threat? Is that exactly how it works? I mean, we have had 1-star reviews in the past, Phil.
I know, but it was valid, so you know
it was really valid.
Fair enough. It was the like early days of the, you know, the first few episodes.
Yeah, where our audio quality was legitimately awful, and I liked in that 1-star review that he complained that we used to have we used to censor ourselves from swearing because back then we hadn't quite worked out how to just not do it. The swearing, I mean, and we used to add like beeping sound effects, and he said that it scared him half to death when the beep sounded because the audio levels were so out of sync with the audio. So yeah, I do appreciate that. But look, you know, focusing on the matter in hand, Ben Kerry, thank you so much for your 5-star review. It's really appreciated. We're glad that you're enjoying the show. Welcome aboard the Lookout Sir 40k podcast. Thank you for being with us for the last 5 months. It's awesome. You know, doesn't matter when or where you found us. It's just great that you're here with us now. And, you know, we'll continue to entertain you as best we can. But that's not, you know, entirely my job to do, i.e. the thanking of you. Obviously, it is now time for me to let Phil say thank you.
Well, dear Ben, thank you very much. You've come into the golden era of the podcast. You briefly got to see Joe before we cast him out of the, I was going to say glory hole, the glorious podcast that we are. And now it's just me and Dan. the best version of this podcast that we've ever put out. So thank you very much. You like our rambles? We tend to do that a lot. You're a lorry driver as well, and I can't tell if we've had this review before or if we just have an awful lot of lorry drivers who like our sort of rambling format, because a lot of the reviews tend to hit those things. So
yeah, I guess it's for people who have a lot of time on their hands, right? And they've got to
exactly.
concentrate
I mean,
on the road.
if you've got 2 or 3 hours to spare, you're probably a lorry driver. So that's clearly our target audience. So
I mean, to suggest that they're sparing that time is not entirely accurate, though, Phil. They are selling that time to whoever it is that employs them to drive. So, it's not spare. It is sold.
Yeah.
And what better way of, enhancing your time earning money but listening to the 40K podcast known as Look Out Sir? Win-win, I would say. Any more, Phil, on your side of things? I appreciate I've just kind of, snowballed in here or bulldozed in here and started taking over as usual. Anything extra to say?
Well, you did knock me off my stride, but I'll leave it with one thing. Be careful when you put on your t-shirt, because it might consume you and take over the world.
Exactly. You got to be careful and look out for that. And if, like Ben Kerry, you want to leave us a 5-star review, as is illustrated here, you can do so on our Facebook page, but you can also do it in other places where you can leave reviews, most notably iTunes. That seems to be pretty consistent. But as we've said many times before, if you have left us a 5-star review on a platform we're not aware of, Stitcher, other places, I can't think of other podcast providers right now, but regardless, if you did do that, then, please let us know, because we're not, omnipotent. We don't check every single platform we're available on. So, let us know so as we can find you and give you the appropriate praise that you deserve. So if you have left us a 5-star review somewhere remote 6 months ago and thinking, why don't those guys ever call out my 5-star review? I've been waiting so long. Simply because we don't know it's there. So let us know and we will. That's how it works. Anyway, let's get on now to the rest of the show. Transitional noise. Woo! In this part of the podcast, we're going to talk about Friday, the second of the 40k days from Warhammer Fest. And if that's not enough, we're going to also try and talk about the Age of Sigmar free announce and whether or not we overly massively care and how that actually kind of feeds into our thoughts and feelings on the state of 40k and potentially opportunities where we imagine it might be cool to compare some Age of Sigmar bits to what's available in 40k right now and what we might like to see ported across, if anything. But yeah, if you refer to the Warhammer community page and you look at day 5, even more Warhammer 40,000, we are going to address the topics raised within this article as they, descend, as it were, Phil. So it's fair to say the first thing we're going to be talking about are the Beast Snaggers. Oh, you excited about these, Phil?
Yeah, I have to say it's a pretty cool box. It's clearly they did a limited edition Sisters box over a year ago now, and it's the orc version of it.
What I'm intrigued about, though, just to say from the outset, is one of the things that was immediately obvious about the Sisters box, or at least after some scrutiny by the community, was immediately obvious. The contents of the Sisters box was predominantly, monopose, not push fit necessarily. It was still a relatively advanced kit, but it was not a, more diverse multi-part plastic kit. You couldn't make different weapons or different war gear options. We're assuming that this isn't the case of the Beast Snaggers. The Beast Snaggers are actually going to be as multi-part as a multi-part kit can become in the world of Warhammer 40,000 today, right?
Well, you say that, but I think so. You get 20 boys in this kit. I think someone's already done a comparison to say that at least half of them, if not more, are duplicates. And obviously that's because it's 2 squads of 10, but it might be within that you're actually getting a 5-man. So for every 10 man, you actually got 2 duplicates, and there's a few different things that make them different. So here you've got different colors, but also I think you get things like different pelts and shoulder pads to make them ever so slightly different, even though things like the heads and the body are the same. Obviously, You've got the Squig Riders are all unique. They are sort of not replicated at all. It's just the actual boy squad, which has some duplicates in.
Yeah, and I suppose what's going to get interesting as we start to see, the viability of the Squig squad or the Squig Rider squad is how that's then going to play out if you're going to then want to take multiples beyond the initial 3. So if you're interested in taking like a unit of 6 of these guys, are you going to find that they're going to have those duplicates, and is that going to start to become quite egregious if you start to take loads? Because again, one of the real fantastical things about the Sisters and by extension the Space Marines, when they do these relatively monopose miniatures, there's a little less character to them, but there's also small little things that you can do with the compatibility of the broader range to potentially mask that. I mean, again, a bunch of uniform Space Marine Outriders are always going to look relatively similar regardless of what you do in terms of posing the arms or moving the heads to different directions and so on. So you can work around that. What I'm interested in is if these Beast Snagger, Squig Riders are going to be universally the same regardless of how many you have, and whether or not you're going to need to be really crafty with your kind of conversion work. But yeah, it's interesting actually that you point out. I mean, again, it's funny when you look at the image, you assume that there isn't that much duplication, but actually upon further inspection, based on what you just said, you actually do start to notice that there is a good deal of duplication. So it'll be interesting to me to discover if this box set contains the mass production, box set kits, or if this will be a specific set of sprues similar to what we saw for the Sisters release. Not saying that one is worse than the other by any stretch of the imagination. I still think this looks beautiful. It's just an interesting thing to consider, I suppose.
Yeah, because these could be easy builds and not the kind of final multi-part kits. It might be interesting with the Squig Riders, for example. Obviously, there's like a squad of 3 plus like a war boss type guy on a bigger Squig. If you'll get that same 3 guys as a multi-part kit, or if they come in bigger squads of maybe say 6, or if it is, you said, if it's those 3 guys and you had then another 3, is there a way of customizing them so they do look different? Because, for example, if you could swap the riders over onto each Squig, you could effectively have like 9 different variants before you have a duplicate. Whether that's actually possible or not, I don't know, and that's going to be based on how the sprue's built. I'd assume not, because normally riders' bodies and legs get stuck to the creature they're riding, but you never know how they've done this. Also, shout out to that little guy riding a weird mono-wheeled Squig. That's cool.
The little snotling with his large nail on a rocket-propelled single-wheeled Squig it's tremendous. I mean, again, it's those little touches of personality that really bring these ranges to life, and I'm hugely in favor in that kind of expression within the range. I've always really enjoyed, as have so many of us, really enjoyed the addition of the Nurglings to the Nurgle and even the Death Guard range, because those guys always bring a lot of really fun personality that embodies the more kind of sadistic, interesting elements of Nurgle as a god of chaos, and what they, the idea that all these little Nurglings delight in spreading plagues and all that kind of stuff is lovely. The Grots never quite, or rather the Snotlings never quite achieved the same kind of attitude overall, although they have had some great standout moments. My favorite one is still the little Snotling that's holding on for dear life as he's being sucked up into the shock attack gun from the current range. Do you remember that one, Phil?
Oh yeah.
That one's absolutely fantastic. But yeah, I feel like this guy is a new contender in terms of one of the cool little kind of gribbly miniatures that you get in the 40k range. But yeah, look, I mean, for me, in terms of like talking about this range and talking about what's available in this box set before we get into the kind of specific characters and other content, I'm really excited with how Games Workshop have actually gone about introducing this squad and introducing this element. Now, in a way, I look at this and I think Games Workshop have learned a lot from how they handled the Primaris range. And I'm really grateful that they have done a decent enough job of giving these guys their own reason to exist and the reason why they're here and why they're present. And the idea that even though I feel like over time, a lot of these minis might replace the regular Orc boy in many people's collections, it really depends on how you want to approach the Orc gameplay and how you want to work that army, because surely and almost certainly spamming regular boys is still going to be a superior option if your goal is to go with a more kind of horde meta. But what these beast snaggers obviously offer you is something a bit more elite, something a bit more bruisery. And Orcs prior to this had a model, or rather had a profile that really met this criteria. So in a way, I feel like these guys have fallen into the Ard boy, slot in a really nice way. So on the assumption that the Ard boy units are now a thing of the past, the idea that the beast snaggers can kind of fall into that space is actually really interesting to me, because in a way, I feel like what they've done with this is introduce a range of new stuff for the Orcs that complements the range, doesn't just act as its successor, at least not immediately. I mean, again, I don't know, Phil. I mean, do I sound a bit hypocritical, or do you feel the same?
I think I'd say they've gone about it a good way, and obviously it's like, are these Primaris Orcs, which is sort of the general rumor that they might be, are they really going to be 2 wounds? Are they going to have the same, or are they going to have the same stat line or as a standard Orc? Like, that is the most interesting thing, I think. And is this a way of sort of updating the Orc range a bit via the back door, where they haven't done what Necrons did, where you've just got new Necron warrior models? Is this a slight, not a bit of a scale creep in a way, which I think people look on as a bad thing, but ultimately is a good thing for the model and the quality of detail on those models? So are they scaling up the Orc range, but they're not invalidating your old ones? They're doing a bit of a Primaris where they've gone, your old Orcs are still valid, these don't replace your Orc boys, but if you want to add these guys to your existing Orcs, great. If you want to collect new Orcs, then you'll probably get these if you're a new Orc player. So I like that they're giving people the options.
See, now I almost disagree with that to an extent, and the reason why I disagree with that is not because I feel like these are Primaris Marines, because the problem is with the Primaris Marine versus the regular Marine is, even though a Primaris Marine is bigger and stronger and blah blah blah, the Marine was always established as a big strong thing. And I think the problem is inherently the variable between a bigger, stronger Space Marine and a regular Space Marine becomes relatively insignificant in terms of how it kind of feels in the way that's expressed through the lore and the world. I mean, it's like, making them more powerful, making them more whatever. It's one of those things that, depending on the writer, depending on the fiction that you're working with, a Marine could be pretty powerful already. And I think one of the problems and one of the interesting things about how they introduced the Primaris Marines back in the day is they essentially created an infrastructure within the Space Marine Codex where you had to take Primaris Marines because they were just better. Whereas already with the Orcs, I can still think of arguments why regular Orc squads are going to still have a place, because, and admittedly, this is me hoping, but if regular Orcs are cheaper and more numerous, I think you're still going to find an argument to include those in your collection because they fulfill a purpose within that kind of broader horde meta, or not necessarily meta, but in that horde construction. What these guys are going to become is more your elite bruisery kind of guys that you're going to sprinkle into your army. But I don't think very many people are going to necessarily exclude the old Orc range from their collections. I think this will innately enhance the collection, much like how when they did the Speed Freak releases, I think this just slots in nicely. And as long as they don't create a situation where the Orc boy squad has no tangible benefits above and beyond taking these guys, which I really hope they don't do. Well, I think these guys are going to be pretty cool.
This is an interesting thing, because it's like, I think that Games Workshop as a design team have sort of learnt their lesson about the Primaris. So the latest Space Marine Codex is like a lot of the best units, a lot of competitive units aren't actually Primaris. They're actually the standard Marines, not really per se tactical squads, but a lot of the others. So, but I think we've got to have them have a place in the game and a reason for you to take them. And I assume they're going to do that same logic here, where these could be the new boys or a new preference, but they're still going to make the old ones valid. I don't know if these are necessarily going to be like elite. Now I get there, it's a big box, but it's like you've just got 20 guys of like effectively boys. So it's like these aren't elite because you've got 20 of them. It's like that's still a bit of a horde. So I mean, it could be that they are going to be a bit more elite, and this is just like a massive box set. So they've just sort of spammed this one squad twice. So you've just got a lot of them. What will be interesting to see is like these are obviously going to have their own data sheet. They're going to play slightly differently. Do you think, for example, people might take these units and be like, I'm just going to count them as boys because they're nicer looking models? And would that be an issue? Because that's almost a bit like when, I know you complain when people convert Primaris Marines to be like counts as tactical squads or other like firstborn units. Do you think you'll have that same problem here where people take this and then convert them to other orc units just because they look nicer?
I'm always first of all conscious of when you say that I complain about things, because I always feel innately like I need to defend my position when it comes to this stuff. I don't outwardly. No. So I don't outwardly mind in the sense that, like, here's the thing: if you want to convert a unit of assault Marines, or more specifically Vanguard Marines, because let's be honest with ourselves, you're not going to do assault Marines anymore. Funny fact, Phil, assault Marines don't even have deep strike anymore. Did you know this?
Wait, but assault Marines can have jump packs though, right? So surely they get it then.
Well, again, that might be one of the weird little stipulations. I'll check that in a moment. Just briefing. I'm relating something that Richie told me the other day, and I've just realised that maybe he could be wrong. Because I imagine
by default they don't have it, but you give them jump packs and then they do.
That's probably where he's made that mistake, isn't it? This is going to be one of those things where I quote a Richie finding, and it turns out that it's not right. But yeah, rules as written, special rules. War gear, jump pack. The bearer has a move characteristic of 12 against the jump pack and fly keywords. Abilities, Angel of Death and Combat Squad. Yeah, so in terms of their abilities, but it might be a jump pack rule. Hang on. Sorry, I've gone off on a tangent here, but jump pack war gear. The bearer has a move characteristic of 12 and gains the jump pack. No, he's right. So yeah, having a jump pack can give it to you. So yeah, assault squads don't have deep strike.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Not that anyone ever takes assault squads, so don't worry about it. But it's one of those weird little stipulations where you're like, okay, very strange. Anyway, my point is, I don't mind if you want to take a Primaris torso, body, legs, chest, and convert it to represent Vanguards for local fun games or your own personal gameplay experiences or, whatever, right? And I don't even necessarily believe that I would disagree to play against you if you rocked up to a tournament game and had that unit in your army and said that's a unit of Vanguard. What I'm saying is I think it's inconsiderate that you do that within a competitive environment. And I think ultimately if a unit or a character or any such thing has an official model and you're intending to use this in a competitive setting, that you owe it to your opponent and to a certain extent to the legitimacy of the game to bring the appropriate unit. I think ultimately, if you're going to use a bunch of Primaris Marines and say they're Sanguinary Guard, they should just, I just don't agree with that. I think at least in a tournament setting, you run them as Sanguinary Guard. If you're going to do that for funsies in your own little thing, you never intend to use this in any matched or competitive play environment, fine, fill your boots, do whatever you want. It's your hobby, it's cool. But Sanguinary Guard have a model used. If I rock up and I'm playing against you in a tournament, though there is no obvious advantage, you do have a slight advantage because of the fact that you're potentially confusing your opponent, and it's not a level playing field. That's how I feel.
Well, yeah.
I wouldn't do it.
Well, that's fair enough. Good props to you.
Well, exactly. But I would play against it if I had to.
Well,
I'd just be a bit like.
I think for me, it's like rule of cool quite a lot. If it's a good conversion, and it has to be a good conversion, then you can get away with most things. I think in this example, if you've got Sanguinary Guard and they're painted black, and you'd be like, is this Death Guard? Is not Death Guard, Death Company, for example, and you're like, oh no, it's Sanguinary Guard. It's like, well, how am I meant to know that? It's like, if it's painted gold, it's got a jump pack, and you've given it the Sanguinary Guard heads, for example, and the wingy bits, and it's got the right war gear, I'd probably be cool with that. But if it's something that's like a weird mishmash and it doesn't really look like what it's meant to be, then that just seems lazy, and I wouldn't like it as much. Yeah,
I think that's the thing, isn't it? You can get away with a lot of stuff by doing it well, but again, it still irks me a bit because there are things that Primaris Marines get the regular Firstborn Marines don't get, and that's the example I always give. But in this case, same problem. If someone rocked up and went, "Oh, these are just regular boys," I'd be like, "Oh, come on, man," because again, it just creates that impression in your mind. You know, you're over time you will be trained to recognize these as what they are, and someone doesn't abide by that, then it's frustrating. And you know, that's the problem. Don't get me wrong, I understand that you would want to use these in place of regular boys because they're much nicer, more modern miniatures, but again, it's very dependent upon the setting for me. At the end of the day, if me and Phil are playing in my garage, I'd let him play with tokens and paper cutouts. You know, I wouldn't mind in that setting. I mean, obviously, I prefer that he was using proper models and but you know, it depends on the setting.
I don't personally think I would forgive myself if I played with tokens and a paper cutout. I'd be like, oh, here's my I don't know, like a Gorgon. It's made of paper. Totally counts, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It really depends on the thing. But to answer your question, yeah, I imagine some people would do it, and more power to them. And you know, I'm not suggesting that they shouldn't want to do it if that's something that is their hobby. I'm just expressing my perspective as someone who would encounter that in a competitive setting and would be frustrated, even if I didn't say it to you. And often, most people won't say it to you, but they will be judging you.
But they'll be saying it behind your back, is what you're saying.
Yeah, basically, that's how it works, right?
Fair enough.
We're all nerds, right? In the 40k community, we're not going to confront you in reality when we can just get away with saying stuff behind your back. No, that's much nicer.
No. Speaking of things behind your back, I do like the kind of squad leader with the kind of totem back banner. It's sort of, I don't know if. Oh, hello.
I was just applauding your beautiful segue there. That was
thank you.
Mate, top shelf right there.
I'll try. Yeah, because I don't know how many of the modern orcs actually do it. I believe there are some, but yeah, I really like it. It sort of very harks back to that kind of sort of second edition era of orcs, but they had like proper banners in those days. So I like that they have like these orcified versions of them. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I think orcs definitely need more iconography within their armies. I think those kind of totems and those kind of war banners and things that kind of rally them and kind of encourage them. I think as time's gone on, you kind of work on the logic that their iconography is baked into their war machine. So it's things like your Morkanauts that, you know, kind of do double duty as obviously massive war machines, but obviously iconography that embodies the various gods that they love and praise and so on and so forth. But yeah, seeing those banners come back is cool, especially when they're being done in a kind of ramshackle way. I don't obviously want to go back to the point where they've got, you know, beautiful, you know, draping fabric banners like a Marine chapter, but I do think some kind of, that kind of iconography is always really good to see.
It's a good evolution for sure.
Yeah, well, they've got it coming back obviously because Makari's back in the game, which is amazing, and that's one of the cool things. And again, not to jump around too much, but that's one of the cool things about the Orc Rangers, them obviously revisiting and bringing back beloved characters of old. And we'll talk about Zodgrog Wartsnagger in a moment, but continuing on the topic of the war boss on his massive squig with like, you know, it's protruding, you know, like ridiculous hammerhead thing that it's got. I mean, the personality of this miniature is beyond reproach. It's incredible. I think again, it's got such a Mad Max kind of, like incredibly like post-apocalyptic warlord vibe to it. The attitude of the leader really kind of oozes in personality, and the way that he's got that really kind of like ramshackled cybernetic arm is just incredible. I think, again, it's one of those things that, looking at this miniature, I am just really, really impressed with the silhouette, the pose, the general kind of grandiose, stance that it's adopting. And I just think, I absolutely love it. I think it's, when they revealed it, I was like, wow, like that is a stunning miniature. So yeah, I can't really say anything nicer about it. I think it's gorgeous. I really rate that mini. And the fact that he's got a massive chain axe behind his back as well is a huge plus as well. So the idea of him, running into combat, I would love it if there was the option to swap out the pistol that he's wielding with the axe. I'd love to see the axe raised high, because I think that would really add even more kind of, scale and weight to the miniature. I think it would give it just a real sense of danger, which would be cool to see. But no, I love it. It's an absolutely stupendous piece of work. I mean, Games Workshop, you take for granted how great Games Workshop are at making miniatures at the moment. But every now and again, you get these moments where you go, oh yeah, I forgot these guys are amazing. this is that. You're just like, yeah, I mean, wow. It's phenomenal. I don't know. I mean, do you want to wax lyrical on it, Phil?
Yeah,
do you feel like I've kind of done it to death?
No, there's a few little things I'd like to say. I think you're right. They have knocked out the park with these, the squig hogs. Really good. I like the sort of the metal foreheads, because obviously it's ramming stuff, so they've replaced it. It really reminds me of those kind of ramming dinosaurs. I can't remember the names of them, but they're quite famous. I'm pretty sure they've been in Jurassic Park of some description, but not the first
Hammerhead squig, whatever it is. Yeah.
The gun held up high sort of reminds me of like a flare gun that he's like shooting in the air to rally the troops. I think when it comes to the cybernetic augmentations, I think last time we saw previews of them, we were like, I'm not too keen on them. But I like that they, in the video, explain some of the lore and why they've all got cybernetic enhancements, because they're trying to tame the squigs, and the squigs aren't tame themselves. So obviously they've lost limbs in an attempt to do that. So I think sometimes when you first see a miniature, you're like, oh, that's a bit stupid. Why are they all amputees? That seems a bit odd. But then once you understand the background behind the model, you just go, oh, okay, cool. That makes sense. I can now buy into this. So I think they're great, these models.
Because last week I was certainly down on the fact that the Pain Boy had so much like mechanical elements, because I was at first of the opinion that they had gone for more of a kind of savage orc kind of vibe, where it was more feral and less kind of less technological. Like they had some basic, projectile weapons, but they weren't really like, I thought it was supposed to be more about a kind of like almost like savage orc type vibe. But yeah, as they've expanded on the lore of this, it makes everything makes so much more sense. And again, it's personified in this miniature. I think it perfectly encapsulates what this range is all about and what they're trying to do. It's trying to give you back a kind of bestial sort of, brutal energy to the orcs. I think the orc range at the moment has some absolutely stunning miniatures in it, but there was a certain sort of, I don't know, there was a lack of power in the posing and in the miniatures, and we saw that kind of remedied with Gaz. But this is, it just brings the characters like this just bring the range to life in a really amazing way. And I mean, again, I have no aspiration to collect orcs, but I might buy that mini. It's so nice.
Yeah, I mean, if I was to get orcs, I would just go for these squig hog riders, and that would be my army. And the boys, while nice, I'm like, there's too many of them to paint up. I just, as you say, want an elite army, because obviously it speeds up my painting. So yeah, I'd go for these squig hog guys.
And again, I mean, on the topic of gorgeous miniatures, Zogrog Wartsnagger. Now, I am of a vintage that I remember the original Zogrog Wartsnagger. I actually almost bought one. So me and my family do like Secret Santa, and I had my brother who used to collect orcs back in the 90s when we all played 40k together, and he had Zogrod Wartsnagger, and I nearly bought for him for Christmas the old metal Wartsnog, and Zogrod Wartsnagger, and was going to paint it up for him as a gift, but I was like, he's probably not going to be that worried about him, so I bought him something else. But yeah, I mean, in terms of just reimagining that miniature and bringing it to life in such an incredible way, and at a glance, it doesn't necessarily immediately stand out to you as Zodgrog based on the old one. The old one had a very kind of like, kind of tall looking pose where his sort of chin was tucked in, and he had this big beard and hair and so on. But yeah, this thing is just incredible. And again, my only complaint, if I have one, is that at a glance, I think it looks really frantic, but when you actually get in close, I think you start to appreciate what's going on. But I think across the tabletop, I don't think he's going to be as beautiful as that War Boss model. But I think when you really get into the details of this, you really start to realize that it is a really beautiful miniature. I think the other problem that you're going to experience is so much of that hair and other external details are all going to be snapped off by the time you've used this in 3 or 4 events. If you travel with your miniatures, this guy will not last. So I wouldn't suggest to anyone out there that they do a Golden Demon style paint job on this thing if they're planning on using it in a competitive or even just regular gaming sense, because there's no way all that hair is staying on.
just get magnetized cases. I think that'll be the way to do it.
Yeah, but even then, it's just catching it as you're moving around. You always twang off the odd little weird bit like that because it's going to be super thin plastic, right?
Yeah, that's true. It's a really cool mini. I like the hair and the fact that orcs don't have hair, so he's got it like stapled on, which is completely mad. I think when I first saw it, the only thing I thought was a bit odd was because I thought it was a power claw originally. I was like, his claw grabber is very like thin, whereas most like power fists and power claws for orcs are like really chunky bits of detail, which sort of seems like a different style. But now you can't really see it from the photo, but he's actually just holding it in as a stick with the kind of grabber claw on the end. So you go, okay, it's a bit different. But yeah, I think that'll be a really cool mini once it's painted up.
What I like about him most is that he's old.
Old man,
he's got that. Like us, yeah, but he's got that sort of wrinkly, weathered look about him, which is, again, completely fresh for the orc range. Like all the other orc war bosses, characters, they're all, in the prime of their lives. They're all, very muscular and very dense and very
shriveled.
He's seen some things, He's been around the block. He's not in the best of shape. I like the fact that he looks like he's wearing a kind of, a very sort of, with the wrinkles in his arms and stuff. It looks like he's wearing a tight jumper, but in fact, no, it's just his skin coming away from his body. And because I don't know, we've never really had a chance to explore old orcs before, like because the orc range, I guess, is always considered that, they go out there, they do what they do, and most of them are dead by the time, they're a couple of years old or something. It's not often that one lives to be however old this guy might be. I mean, it's really interesting. I like it because it expands on the broader thing. I'd like to see this sort of stuff represented more within like some of the Marine range in some regards. I always like the idea that Dante actually, when he takes the mask off, is actually a really old, withered guy beneath it all, even though he still has the stature and the size of a Space Marine. He's been battling and fighting wars for millennia, and the idea that he's actually quite wrinkled and old. I like to see that a bit more because even the
husk.
Well, yeah, I don't know, like because that's the thing. Even the old kind of looking Space Marine heads have a certain kind of youthfulness to them. They always look a bit kind of heroic. There was always the sexy Vanguard, the sexy Stern Guard vet with the beard and stuff and the bald head. And it was supposed to kind of maybe be a bit more aged, but even that was really kind of, cool and whatever. I quite like seeing a few old geezers,
You want a guy that's like, he's on his last mission before he gets up for retirement and he's like, I'm too old for this.
That's it. I want another one heading for the glue factory. That's how it is, That's what I want. But yeah, so and then the last piece of the puzzle, at least as it pertains to the Beast Snaggers, is the announce that the Orc Codex is coming out. And what's interesting about this is the confirmation that these guys are part of the Orc Codex as opposed to their own codex. Because there was a lot of speculation that they might actually be their own thing, but now it's been confirmed that these are essentially an added culture. And I think the Orc range is really healthy now. I think, when you consider the additions they've made, the Morkanaut, Gorkanaut, the Flyers, the Gretchen guns that they added a little while ago, the Speed Freak range that was added a couple of years ago, I think the Orcs are in a great place. I mean, there's never been more compelling to play and collect Orcs. And I really hope more people do it, noting that I'm unlikely to do Orcs again because I tried and it just didn't, suit me. But yeah, I'm keen. I want to see more Orcs. I think that's going to be amazing.
You are, because they said that this is like half of what the Orcs are going to get, so there's going to be a ton more stuff. What was interesting in that initial animated video is that they kind of had those like Orc commandos hiding behind trash cans and stuff, which I think is a bit of a meme in itself from sort of like well-known conversions online, so it was nice to have a bit of a nod to that. I sort of do wonder if that's a little hint that maybe Orc commandos are coming down the line, but who knows.
I mean, I'm just happy with more Orc stuff. The Orc range actually, on balance, is probably the best that Games Workshop has. I think, there's not very many duds in the Orc range that I can think of.
Yeah,
other than maybe the Morvenn. Some people don't like that.
Yeah, because in terms of like just really old kits, like a lot of them do hold up. I think they've still got the chopper or the chopper, like the copter thing is super outdated, right? Like that's
that thing's that's an old Gorka Walker miniature. They did it in Black Reach, which was an Orc Space Marine thing, and they added a new Orc copter to that. But I feel like, in a way, I hope that in this Orc Codex they've just written that out of it or just put it into Legends. It feels like that's a Legends unit, right? Like, it's so.
I mean, it'd be interesting
so
if they're still like, we're going to flog this to death. Like, and if you want to buy it, we're still going to sell it, which is an odd one with what they do with some ranges where, stuff moves to Legends, stuff doesn't, and they're still happy to sell it. Yeah, it's a bit weird sometimes. Hopefully, those old models will just get a refresh with, whatever new models are going to come out. Because obviously they're still supporting not just Beast Snaggers, they are doing standard Orcs, in inverted commas. Because obviously you got this new war boss in was it Mega Armor?
Yep, which is something you've had in Orc armies for ages, but you've never actually had a dedicated model beyond Gazcol. Wow. I mean, again, talking back to what I was saying about the other war boss, I mean, I don't like this war boss as much just because I don't know, I'm not that big into the Orc Mega Armor, but I mean, again, you want to talk about a miniature that's oozing personality and is absolutely owning its space and fulfilling the role of being a war boss. I mean, this guy looks incredible. He absolutely owns it, and he looks terrifying. I think, at the end of the day, and this is before we even see the scale of this guy, because the amount of people who are using the Iron Jaws war boss to rep for Mega Armor war bosses at the moment is absurd, because obviously the Iron Jaws war boss is just such a great miniature. But I do think like this will surpass it, and moreover, it fulfills the function perfectly. And I also like the fact that they didn't just give it a claw; they've actually got it wielding a big double-handed axe, and that's assuming that there aren't any alternate builds for this guy. Maybe there is a big shooter and mega claw version of it, but I just think, again, the expression on the face, the posing of the axe, the weight of the miniature, the little grot standing on top shooting his gun for him, which I would really be impressed if this guy's actually ballistic skill 4, because he's got a grot shooting for him, because obviously famously grots hit on 4s. So I think it would be amazing. So if this guy's also ballistic skill 4, I mean, it's a win-win, right?
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Although they're calling it a Gretchen here, and I think we've had this conversation before where it's like, I can't remember the difference between them, or if they're the exact same name, but like
Gretchen
one's
and
slightly
Grot are
older
the
one.
same. Are the same thing. Yeah. So Grot was what they ended up calling Gretchen when they introduced Gork and Morka. So it was a more like orky slang for it. But I think officially they're Gretchen, but they've also become Grots. Grots,
Yeah.
stinking Grots.
Yeah, the little Gretchen on the back is so cool. Also, cool back banner as well with a little fist icon. That's very cool. But yeah, I actually really like this model. I would actually say I like it more than the Beast Snaggers, even though I do love the Beast Snaggers models. I think this one it's a bit more just a classic orc, but just such cool sculpt as well.
Yeah, I would say this guy is more unfettered rage as opposed to the. I think the Beast Snagger War Boss has a certain level of cold cunning in his expression. I think he's got a certain kind of menacing kind of presence, whereas this guy just clearly is coming to knock your head off, which is perfectly fine as well. Right?
And what I do like about this is, and something you sort of hinted on, is that they're kind of like, dare I say, like serious orcs. They're like proper mean and scary looking and look like they're here to have a fight. Whereas the last lot of orcs, which were like the what they called the wagon racers, the Boomsnagger.
No, the Speed Freaks.
Yeah. So that range was a bit Looney Tunes and leaning much more into like the humour side of it. It's like they were cool minis. They looked great, but they weren't particularly scary. They were just they were much more humorous. Whereas here, I think it's like the other side of the orcs where. They're sort of fun in an extent where I've got a Gretchen on the back and I've got a tiny Gretchen riding a squig. But beyond that, they're all quite serious looking models with less humour to them. But I think that's good that you're getting these different sides of the orcs.
Yeah, I thought the War Boss on War Trike had a certain presence to him. But again, it was very different. It was very much like him riding the War Trike and being much more. Yeah, again, it's difficult to remember exactly what that mini was like, but yeah, it was a cool mini. But like, yeah, a lot of the other wagons were much more about guys with goggles on with their kind of flying caps flopping back in the wind and Gretchen's holding on as they're trying to shoot and stuff.
Kind of Mad Max style Gretchen stuck to the front with a mask on and stuff.
I mean, it was incredible, though, right? I mean, again, that addition to the range has been so welcome. And again, I'm going to say it, I bet you they will be exceptional in the 9th edition codex. I just can't see how those things aren't going to be incredible. But we're going to see, right? I mean, again, not long to wait, hopefully, maybe a few months. But yeah, really exciting to see that the orcs are getting some love. Another Xenos race. So, between the Drakari and the Necrons, we're now getting a third Xenos race confirmed, which is amazing. And it's great to see the orcs getting some love. So, yeah, no, I'm massively in favor of this. I think this is incredible. And again, to suggest that it was disappointing to see this range in more detail, I can understand why people would be frustrated because they've sort of seen elements of it before. But, I mean, it's so good. And I think this is the thing. It's like, I think people can immediately, misrepresent what this actually means in terms of the hobby and what it can mean for certain people. If you're an orc player, this is phenomenal. But also, it's just more flavor to the range and more exciting things that you're going to see across the tabletop. I'm so excited to start seeing those Beast Snaggers taking to the tabletop. And don't get me wrong, I might regret saying that because in years to come they might be utterly horrendous, and I'll be like, those Beast Snaggers, I hate them so. It was better when there were no Beast Snaggers, but
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 there's
now
still going to be more Beast Snaggers as well, because obviously, so the War Boss in Mega Armor with the Gretchen on his back was teased in the very original animation that they previewed, but within that animation there was more stuff. So there was like a huge squig pulling a massive, I don't know, gun platform of some kind. So that model's still to come. So I'm just really excited to see what they're going to do with it. And sort of unlike the Sisters reveal, like, yeah, we had seen one or two of these models, but ultimately this was like a big chunk of new models to look at. It was fantastic. I mean, yeah, the mech, the dock model, like they probably shouldn't have shown that on Monday, and they could have shown it here just to add more to that oomph factor. I think this one is a 40k reveal worked so much better than the Tuesday one.
Oh, yeah. Like, and again, I think it just speaks to the sisters' range because, again, so much of it was shown off, and essentially all it amounted to was, 2 miniatures. The old lady who we still highly rate, and obviously the High Lord of Terror, who is incredible, but everything else had kind of been seen in some way, shape, or form. But obviously not discounting Gaunt's Ghost. And then obviously on the top of your Gaunt's Ghost, we are now obviously seeing more guard stuff. And what's interesting, Phil, is last episode I was suggesting that if, we were getting new guard stuff, that I would be exceptionally happy and ultimately really, pleased that the guard are getting some love. What we got is a halfway, measure. It's not obviously a new guardsman kit because it's predominantly made of a pre-existing Cadian kit. But what we've got here, I gotta say it, man. I love it. It's a beautiful example of how you breathe new life into old minis. And yeah, sure, there are some aspects of those older minis that create some issues with like scaling and, ultimately, some of the weapons and the more kind of heroic scale of these things is definitely going to mean that even with this upgrade kit, they're not going to necessarily have the same size and stature as, say, Gaunt's Ghosts or the other Catachan minis that are doing the rounds. But, talk about just adding so much more personality to your squads. I think, I honestly, I'm staggered that just a few extra heads and a few extra weapons can do this to a unit. It's completely transformed. Much for the better, in my opinion. I think these guys are incredible. And again, I don't want to sound like a crazy fanboy with this stuff, but I think it's that thing where it's like, it just gives you so many more options. You can inject so much more personality into your squads and create characters. And I think that's the thing that the Guard were really missing up to this point, is that they were all this, the sort of nameless, faceless masses, as it were. Whereas now you can definitely project more character into these units and give them more of a personality, and your sergeants can become more lauded heroes within your collection, and your squad mates will start to take on personalities of their own. And I don't know, I just think, again, in terms of like projecting more kind of character into the units is just amazing. And I think, obviously, yeah, I mean, again, I can't speak highly enough of it. I know it's just a refresh, but I like it. And, that's my perspective on it. I don't know. How do you feel about it, Phil?
Well, I've gone through a range of emotions with this kit. When I first saw it, I was actually really disappointed, and I was like, "Oh, is this it? Is this the Guard? Like the refresh line, the new models that are well and truly needed?" It's like, cool. It's not very good. It's like, imagine instead of Beast Snaggers being released, they just released some new heads for Orc Boys and gone, here you go. Like, that's pretty disappointing. And I think, hear me out here, when you see every other army getting their old models redone, having new versions of them, the Orcs getting Beast Snaggers, you've got the Necrons getting a whole new range refresh, like the old Necron Warriors, even the elder units like last year got a new a redone squad. Which one was it again? Banshees?
The Banshees and the Incubi.
And then, as you said yesterday, not yesterday, in the last episode, it's like we saw, we talked about like the Traitor Guard models from Blackstone Fortress, like the scale of that is so much nicer, and they are very Cadian-esque looking in terms of their kind of war gear. And then we had the Gaunt's Ghost, and it's like, oh, imagine if we had a Guard army like that. Like, the fact that they gave you Gaunt's Ghost and then gave you this is almost like the kick in the teeth, because it's like, we've just shown you what you could have and you're not getting it. And on one hand, it's like, they could be just saying, on one hand, it feels like they're just saying, we don't care about Guard. You're not getting a range refresh. This is it to tide you over. Here you go. But I'm going to now turn it around and give you some positives. It's like, for people that do have a Cadian army, this is fantastic. This is breathing new life into old models. As you say, it's a bit of a halfway house. It's the best of potentially both worlds. It's not necessarily the best option, because if they had redone this kit, because it's like they've done the heads and they've done the arms, all you had to redo was the bodies and the legs. and you could have had a really nicely scaled squad. If they had done that, they would then have to go and do the command squad. They would then have to do the heavy weapons squad. Maybe, I don't know what else there is, like a special weapons squad potentially, or vet squad. So it's like they would have to do so much more to completely refresh that line. Whereas actually, you know, pragmatically and practically, I think giving heads, because I think the thing is the Cadian models do look a bit derpy. The scale is a bit old style, big chunky arms, quite stocky legs, big hands, and funny looking heads. And it is actually amazing that just by swapping the heads alone and some of the arms, how much better these miniatures look. Like, they're not particularly detailed, like in terms of the bodies and stuff, and I think the proportions are a bit rubbish. But and this is a bit of a big leap of faith here. In my mind, it feels like we want to still support the Cadian range as a thing. We're going to park it though. Like, this is it done. We're going to give you a few bits to give it a bit of a lease of life, to make the models look a bit better, convert them up. But we can still sell this. It's still viable. It is super old, but it's not terrible. It'll do. But then in a few months' time, they're like, here's your complete line of brand new Catachan, or a different regiment. Like, I don't know, people say Plastic Krieg, but, you know, still Legion, Praetorian, you know, whatever. If they give us something else in addition to this, then it, to me, makes more sense. And then you go, oh, brilliant. So we got Cadian, they're due. But we've now got a brand new range of plastic kits. A bit like Beast Snaggers, if they do that for Guard, here's a whole new range of stuff. I think, to me, that would be the best dream and option, which makes me sort of feel a bit optimistic about this range.
Yeah, I think for me, and I do sympathise, mate, because I think, look, if I thought for a second this was all you're getting as Guard, yeah, sure, I completely support your perspective. I think if you're a Guard player who's approaching this glass half empty and you're looking at it and you're saying, oh, that's it, is it? That's all I'm getting. That's all you're getting today. But who knows what tomorrow has in store for you? And, you know, again, obviously, neither of us know when this Guard Codex is going to drop. It could be this year. It could be next year. It could be the year after. They could be working tirelessly. Well, you know, maybe not tirelessly, but they could be working extensively on, you know, updating and completely refreshing this range. And in a lot of respects, I would take it as a positive that they have shown intent. You know, that's how I would interpret this. I think they've gone, look, guys, here is some stuff for Guard. We've not forgotten you. We're not doing this for, you know, other ranges at this moment in time. We're doing it for Guard. And, you know, maybe the Codex isn't coming this year. Maybe it's not coming next year, but it'll be coming sooner or later. And when it does, I have every confidence that Games Workshop will refresh that range, because I think the Guard range needs it. And I think they know that. And I think if they could create a Guard range that is truly, you know, interesting and strong as an overall range, I think, you know, they could increase their amount of Guard players massively. And, you know, I just think that's the thing. I think, you know, the Guard army is always one of those armies that's always really interesting and has a lot of flavor to it. And, you know, the joy of it is that it's, you know, represents all the different walks of life of humanity. And, you know, there's so much more personality that you could inject into that. And I think this is a step in that direction. And I think we'll be in a place where, you know, future ranges are going to be really exciting. The only problem is we have to just be patient. This is not going to be it, in my opinion.
Well, this is the thing. You can't really tell, and we're only guessing at Games Workshop's intentions. And I think it was a bit of a misstep on their behalf in terms of releasing these upgrade kits now, or previewing them now. I think what they should have done is gone, if for example, if there is going to be a new Catachan kits or a refresh of regiment line, I think they should have led with that and then gone, oh, by the way, we're also upgrading the Cadian range to sort of be on par, but without completely redoing them. I think at the moment, because they've done this first, it's like a bit of a bad feels, because it's like, oh, great, is this it? Like, oh, you're not supporting Guard by doing this, really. So I think if they had just swapped it around, released this later, it would have a bit more of a positive impact on a lot of Guard players. And I've seen a lot of mixed reviews from people on, the Guard forums and stuff. Some people absolutely love it. A lot of people are kind of a bit salty, like I was initially, and just gone, oh, like, is this all we're getting? And I've sort of, as I said, I've sort of gone through this journey of an initial disappointment, because it is a bit of a, oh, is this it? But then I'm trying to see the positive side of it, where if there is some other stuff, bigger stuff coming down the line, and they're just using this to tide over and still maintain the Cadian line, then I think that's a good thing. But it is a bit of a wait and see. So I think they in terms of marketing, they've probably done this in the wrong order. Just to placate those Guard players, they should have led with the bigger stuff first and followed up with this for the Cadian players afterwards.
Yeah, I think here's the thing, right? It's like, and again, this is one of their problems when it comes to how they have to communicate, because although they're happy to reveal stuff, they don't want to reveal more than is necessary. So they're not going to use language that indicates that this is a tide over or a initial burst of Cadian specific stuff to make their kits more relevant, because moving forwards they're abandoning the Cadians as the main kind of plastic range for what they envision in the future, and they want to make sure that Cadian guys are still going to be content in the future and their range is still going to fit in. It's just that moving forwards we're focusing on Catachan or Mordians or whatever, right? And that's the thing, because to me, logically, I can't see Games Workshop at this point in time investing huge amount of monies in refreshing the Cadian range. I can see them doing it with the Catachan range. And the reason I can see that is because the Catachan box set is old and tired. And yes, this was also old and tired, but less so now. And, at the end of the day, I think this is a step in the right direction for them. And if we start to see more Catachan models when the Guard come around, great. Because then all of a sudden we've got Catachans and we've got Cadians. And, there's maybe opportunities to kind of mix and match other things in. I think, the thing about the Cadian range is, as a baseline, you can start to add other elements to the visuals to introduce other kind of regimental elements into them, which is quite nice. Catachan's quite an interesting one because you can't really do much with it to make it anything other than Catachan. It's not like you can take a Catachan model and go, and now it's a Mordian. It doesn't really work. Yeah,
I think that's the thing. Catachan look great, but they are very much a one and done. They're such a unique style. Whereas and I've said it before, if you do like a Mordian Iron Guard style sort of dress coat vibe, a couple of head swaps, and you've got a bunch of different like law abiding, and I mean LORE regiments that are possible, that give you that extra flexibility. And it's interesting to see what they're going to lean into. Like, do they just want Cadians as that kind of generic regiment look that can represent anything that you want? Do they want to do like a sort of orc style where you've got all these different cultures and they all have a distinct look to them? And are they going to support those models, even if it's just with one or two kits? It's interesting. I think this sort of, new heads, for example, for want of a better word, upgrade kit is an interesting way of like updating the range. It's like we talk about scale creep, sort of not necessarily in a bad way, but just like how new models tend to be a bit bigger, and they're trying to introduce them into a range without ruining your pre-existing army. It's like, so with you've got Primaris and you've got Firstborn, and it's like they're sort of introducing them rather than phasing them out. With things like some Necrons, it's like they've introduced brand new things, but they've also just updated old stuff. And that one feels like quite a seamless transition. With Orcs, for example, you've got these new guys, rather than just making Orc boys bigger, for example. Because I've seen people, or a lot of Orc players, be like, oh, I'm glad they've done this, because if they had just upgraded the old Orc boys kit, that would be really annoying, because you've got this weird scale of old models and new models. And if they did that with the Cadians, you'd have a lot of old Cadian players be really annoyed. But obviously new players won't mind so much, because you don't notice the scale creep. And I know it's like, so even as a Spaceman player now, it's like, I really don't want old Firstborn Marines. I just want Primaris, because they look so much better, and you can't really have them next to each other on the tabletop without the older ones just looking really stupid. It's like we've been talking for a while now about Terminators, and so I really like the Tartarus and the Cataphractii Terminators, or even the old kind of classic Terminator sculpts, but they just don't work next to Primaris because the size and scale are just so different. So this is interesting. Like they've sort of solved the problem by upgrading the kit, but not having to change the scale of it. So I think that's just an interesting element to it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think the thing that's interesting is obviously I would love it if they just did, like if they just went, look, now this is the range of Cadians and this is them done. We're going to do a box set for Catachan. Cool. There you go, everyone. A Catachan box set, which settles the problem of the old Catachan, troop choice, because it's not nearly as nice as their command squad or their heavy weapons teams. Cool. Settled that. And now here is a kit for Talon. Is it Talon? Talon, the desert. Yeah, the desert raider guys. Then you get like, a Mordian style thing, and you get, who are the ice guys? You remember the ice guys? Valhallans. Get all that kind of stuff and just be like, there you go, there's a plastic kit for each of those. Now, maybe they have to make it direct order only, maybe they have to do whatever, but I think if they did actually give us the opportunity to just sort of have that as a range. Now, let's be honest with ourselves, as a range, it's probably really inefficient from a kind of costings and kind of, management perspective, because having loads of options for the guard is probably a negative in terms of managing stock levels and dealing with that. But, it gives you the opportunity to add that flavor to your list and to mix and match that stuff together to give some real personality to your unit. And obviously, if Games Workshop did a good job of facilitating cross-compatibility from model to model, from range to range for the guard, you could really start to do some fun stuff with it. But yeah, look, I mean, again, this upgrade kit, I understand that if you're looking at it and thinking this is all we're getting, I know it for sure, fine. I agree with you. Probably not that great. But if you, like me, are a little bit glass half full and you think that the guard are going to get more love than this, and I really hope they are, because otherwise I'm going to feel the same as you guys that are frustrated by this. This is a step in the right direction for me. And I think and this is the thing, it's just a really beautiful thing to see them breathe so much new life and personality into a kit that is super old and past it. And even just weapon options. I mean, we didn't even really talk about that. The fact that now you buy a box set for guard, and you can take every single type of weapon that you have access to.
Yep, that's pretty cool. Although weirdly, they still haven't given a lasgun to the sergeant, or because obviously that's something Krieg models have and can't do in the rules. But I guess maybe I think if there is a codex update and they give the sergeant a lasgun, you'll just take one of the standard guys' lasguns. But it'd be cool. It'd have been cool to have a cool pose with a lasgun for a sergeant. But I can sort of see why they haven't done that, because it might not be a thing. Also cool to see Lady Guard, and as I said on the stream, under all that armor, you're all pretty much the same anyway, so it doesn't make much difference, and it's just a head swap. And I think that's really cool. It's what a lot of players have been just saying for them to do for a long time. So it's good that they do listen to the community in that respect. So I think multi-part regiments could be a thing in the future, but who knows.
I agree, though. I think, as an elder player, I've been used to having, female warriors mixed in with, male warriors in the Guardian box set for, the last 20 years or so. So, yeah, seeing that extended to the Guard is really great. And, yeah, just, again, it's just so much more character to it. It looks like what you would expect a kind of group of warriors drawn from all across the Imperium would look like. It's all sorts of diverse races, cultures, everything. It's amazing. I hate to sound like the worst kind of 40k Games Workshop fanboy here, but I just like it. I think it's cool. I think it's great. And again, I just really like it. The closing thing was the Psychic Storm. That basically suggested that Grey Knights and Thousand Suns aren't far away. Yay. Interesting to imagine if Primaris Grey Knights are potentially a thing. I strongly doubt it. But it's going to be interesting to see if we're going to get any new minis for Grey Knights, because obviously this could be some of the first firstborn Marines done in new 40k scaling. So
Well,
it's going to be interesting.
Beyond the Space Marine Heroes range, so there is some.
Yes, of course.
There, but...
Yeah. If you were to look at the Grey Knight aspect of the range, is there anything you would like to see being redone or being added to Grey Knights? I mean, again, you're not really that well versed with Grey Knights, but is there anything you think might be cool?
How dare you? So my first Space Marines ever were Grey Knight Terminators in metal, the very old ones from back in the day. So I've always had a soft spot for them. I think I bought their 6th or 7th edition codex because I planned to get an army of them, but that never went anywhere. So to assume that I am a Grey Knights novice, how dare you?
I'm very sorry, my friend. I didn't mean to to suggest that.
No, it's fine. Interestingly, is it going to be a box set where you basically get a bunch of models that already exist plus one new character? Could be the case. Obviously, the character in question is, I guess, the one in the image that they showed you. Or would it be like a bit more of a range refresh? Because pretty much 90% of the Grey Knights are older looking models and a bit dated and could do with new kits. So yeah, I don't think there'd be Primaris. I'd like to think that
I doubt it.
True scale firstborn though would be fantastic. That would be amazing.
So the Grey Knight range was refreshed in 2011, I want to say. So it was one of the last 5th edition books. I would like to see, so for me, for Grey Knights, if I had my choice, I think you really need to look at the Brother Captain Stern mini. I think that Brother Captain Stern mini is from one of the, I think it was like from the 4th edition release, like the old metals and stuff. So I think that definitely needs to be evaluated. But if I'm honest with you, the thing I'd like to see more is a Grey Knight Terminator Librarian that actually embodies more of the Grey Knight element. So rather than just using a generic Space Marine Librarian, painting it silver and going, well, hey, it's a Grey Knight, I think it'd be actually really nice if they had a kit that actually enabled you to have a more Grey Knight-esque librarian, because to be a librarian within the forces of the Grey Knights suggests that you are a psyker of incredible power and presence and intellect and all this other stuff, right? I mean, like, if you are a psyker amongst psykers, you've got to be more than your average Space Marine Terminator librarian. So for me, that would be cool to see. I think if they added some kind of new, even more awesome Terminator psychic librarian for the Grey Knights, I think that would be cool. I think that'd be really
my suspicion is that Castellan Crow will be the new / old character model getting redone from that video.
Which one's he?
You'd have to scroll down right to the bottom because he's temporarily out of stock online. He looks very good, but as you say, the other ones are a bit dated. Brother Captain Stern and Khal Drogo, not Khal Drogo, he's from a different genre entirely. Khal Drogo, I think, could be another option.
Well, when you look at what they did with Abaddon and his demon sword, and the idea of Crow having the demon sword on the mini and having more presence, and I don't know. Crow is amazing actually as well. He's so underrated. I played against a guy who ran him, and he does, you just roll for smite with him. He's got like a 3-inch smite that does like 6 damage all the time or something crazy, and he fights after he dies, and he's monstrous. He's got like a 2-up invuln or something. He's incredible. So yeah, I mean, who knows? And then from the Thousand Sun side of things, Phil, anything you want to see on that side?
Well, the thing is it actually Thousand Suns or is it Tzeentch? Tzeentch Chaos.
Yeah, good point. Good point. It could be Tzeentch, it could be Thousand Suns, it could be a bit of both, really.
It would make more. Well, I mean, it makes sense to be either, but I would say it makes more sense to be Tzeentch because Grey Knights are demon hunters more than chaos hunters. So I suspect it will be them, and it will probably be some character floating around on a board of some kind because that's what they love. I mean, who knows? It'd be great to see some cool demons. It could herald Actually, no, because that's Slaanesh. I'm thinking about those new AOS kind of demons that they've been previewing that don't have all 40k yet. So that's either going to probably appear in Book of Rust Part 2 or in another Demon Codex down the line. So it'd be interesting to see when that happens. But yeah, Tzeentch demons, more of them, always cool.
See, I would like to start to see more of the kind of body horror aspects of the Chaos Army personified on the tabletop. Like, I like the idea that we could see, human beings that have been transformed into these portals, these vessels that demons use to enter our reality. So,
hosty types, like a bit like my Rat King model. Like, no, I've literally given people nightmares.
But I think that's the thing. Like, I think something like that would be super cool if they were able to tap into more of that kind, especially with Tzeentch, because Tzeentch is, the Lord of Change. The idea of, because we have Spawn, and the Spawn are obviously Spawn, and they're all wibbly monster things and all the rest of it. But, something that kind of, even if it's just like augmented human hosts that still retain a bit of their original form, but they're more kind of mutated and whatever. Again, what I'm describing kind of has that Spawn vibe to them, but again, because one of the things I like about the Tzeentch mechanic was the idea that you have a pink horror that splits into blue horrors, that splits into fire, flame horrors, whatever they're called. I like the idea of it breaking down, but I'd love them to add like a new state to that, which is like the bit where it's like bursting out of someone, and it's kind of empowering them to doing incredible things before, the demon bursts free of it. So like the idea of, like the Russian doll thing, where you can start with a hulking monstrosity and then it turns into 2 pink horrors and then 4 blue horrors and then 8, whatever. Like, I think that'd be quite fun. But I guess we'll see on that side of things. So there you go. That was the 40k side of the update. How do you want to do this with Age of Sigmar stuff for day 2, Phil? Do you want me just to rattle on into Age of Sigmar, or do you want to do a transitional noise and have it as its own thing?
Make it official with a transitional noise.
All right, mate. I like the sound of that. Transitional noise. Oh, actually, if we're going to do that, then we have to give closing thoughts on day 2 of 40k. Phil?
Well, at the time, I think I was a bit disappointed. As I said, I was stung by the Cadian upgrade kits. But overall, honestly, it was a really good day. In hindsight, I've gotten over it, guys. Don't worry. Beast Snaggers, fantastic preview. The tease at the end with Grey Knights and Tzeentch, not too fussed. Like, cool, great. Obviously, I think I was almost expecting it to be Black Templars, but wasn't. So cool that Grey Knights are going to get some love. Cadian stuff, it's cool. I mean, I still don't think it's the best option, but it's the best option in a very kind of practical, pragmatic way of how they can keep a range going. The Orc stuff was just phenomenal. So all players unite, happy around the world. Your time in the sun has come, and it's not even October yet.
That's it. Well, I assume that's when they're going to release them, right? October, it has to be.
Well, no, I actually said it was coming out quite soon, so it won't be done.
Look, I think it was relatively clear from my appraisal of everything in there that I liked it all. I think it's great. I think all the models are great. I think the ranges look cool. I think this is going to be a great addition to the game in the form of the Beast Snaggers. I think giving Orc players more options is awesome. The models look incredible. And, despite some understandable potential frustration, I like the Cadian upgrade kit. I think it's going to give, players the opportunity to do some really nice looking armies. And Thousand Suns or, Tzeentch versus, Grey Knights, cool. I'm sure it's going to be great. Again, Grey Knights is always really interesting, and the fact that we could be seeing some Firstborn Marines resculpted gives me confidence for potentially where the Marine range might go in the future. Overall, really happy with it. I mean, again, I acknowledge that some of it was obviously seen before, and had we had the Beast Snaggers seen for the first time ever during this unveiling, they definitely would have had obviously more gravitas. But regardless, I think it was a overall win. So, transitional noise. Woo! Welcome back, everyone. After obviously a relatively exciting 40k related update on Friday, we were all aflutter. What could it be on Saturday? Hark! What do I see there upon the hill? Could it be more 40k related things? Oh no, it's Age of Sigmar. Free, no less. I mean, part of me was really hopeful that it wasn't going to be Age of Sigmar free. And the reason why was that I wanted Games Workshop to prove me wrong. I wanted them to go, yeah, we're going to actually wait till 2022 to think about doing an Age of Sigmar, because actually the system's pretty reasonable at the minute and we don't need to do this. But obviously the old, mechanisms of, GW sales marches on, and they needed to get a new edition out so as they could, sell us the same armies and the same books all over again. Such is the cycle.
Yes, I mean, it is interesting that in the same previews, not the same day, but in the Monday Age of Sigmar, they previewed effectively the last book, Kragnos, which is effectively the end of AOS 2. And then the same week, they're like, in addition to that book, here's a new edition, a bit like the, was it the Prior Nexus? Was that the very last Psychic Awakening book? And people bought that knowing full well that a new edition is on the turn.
I mean, what's super interesting is that they put up for pre-orders last week or on Sunday, so they're going on pre-orders this week, the new Vampire Army. And again, that Vampire Army is, as far as I can ascertain, going to be a second edition Age of Sigmar army. So it's like, hey guys, buy this second edition Age of Sigmar army. We won't be updating it for ages. Have fun with that.
I mean, in their defense, they have sort of said that all of the battle tomes are designed to work with the new edition, or at least the new edition is designed to work with the older battle tomes. But yeah, it's a bit similar to what we had with, I'm just trying to think, like 5th and 6th edition, maybe 7th edition, where sometimes you would, if you are that very last codex of an edition to come out, you're not getting yours for a long time. So hopefully there'll be something else to counteract that. I think with AOS, though, they do different things, like they do the big alliance books, which tend to come out quite early doors, which will tend to cover off most factions. Even if it's not your specific smaller codex battle tome.
Yeah. I mean, here's my 10 pence on the topic of Age of Sigmar free. I think in terms of this announce, I think it was easily the most disappointing aspect of the entire Warhammer Fest, because I just think they absolutely missed the mark in terms of how they approached this announce and how little kind of fanfare they were able to create around it. I mean, to compare this to the Warhammer 9th edition announce, this by comparison just really didn't do what that 9th edition announce did. There was no big swanky CG trailer. There was no, dedicated event. It was kind of like a, shoehorned in bit at the end. And, Games Workshop leveraged the mystery angle to essentially drive engagement and drive more eyeballs. Loads of us who wouldn't necessarily be that interested in Age of Sigmar tuned in under the pretense that this was going to be super big and super exciting. And look, a new edition of Age of Sigmar is big and exciting, and I'm not trying to suggest it isn't, but it just didn't really feel like they had as much going for this as what they brought to the table with 9th edition. Now, again, Warhammer 40,000 is obviously a bigger game than Age of Sigmar, and obviously it's more important to them as a business, so they can justify what they did around 9th edition. But yeah, I think the thing that was really interesting was this. There was sort of like, yeah, new Age of Sigmar, cool. And it was like, all right, great. The only other thing I'll say on it is, I don't know if... Question, Phil. Do you feel like Stormcasts are like Space Marines in as much as... Do you think people play Age of Sigmar because they want to collect Stormcast Eternals? Or do you feel like, unlike Space Marines, Stormcast Eternals are in a way the least popular or the least interesting bit of Age of Sigmar? I mean, again, I'm just curious what you think.
Yes. I mean, okay, let's dive down to it. I assume one would hope, or not even hope, one would assume that Stormcast are their biggest selling faction. it's one of those ones. I mean, but who knows if that is the case? But they're the poster child of AOS. They're the most supported. They do get new ranges every few years, or pretty much every year. There's at least a couple of models coming out with it. They've got this kind of similar sort of style, to releasing Phobos and Gravis. They've got they were releasing the chambers. Press the button. That old meme. With SIGMAR, so they're always churning out new Stormcasts. Does that equal they're the most popular faction, or are they almost like the loss leader, let's say, of the AOS system? Do people really buy into them, or do they sort of market them as being the things to get, but then actually not many people buy them? I mean, I don't know. I don't play AOS. I'd like to. I've always looked at it. I've always followed it along. In terms of people that I know or of people that play it, I very rarely seem to see a Stormcast army on the tabletop. It tends to be the other more interesting armies that people seem to really want to get into. So yeah, it is interesting, and it's sort of interesting with a slight sort of shift with this style of Stormcasts. I'm going to sort of say they're a bit more grounded and realistic. They're less of that kind of hero scale with like really big chunky stuff. These are a bit more svelte, a bit more slimline, sort of a bit more realistic proportions, which I think is really good. When it comes to the model that they previewed, which I'm sure we can get into, it's like I like the fact that she's got actual wings, which might seem counterintuitive in terms of being more realistic. But I think wings as a visual concept is something we all understand. Very angelic, a bit like Sanguinus, a bit like angels. You can understand that. And then if you look at the previous Stormcast Eternals that could fly, that have these, they're meant to be literal rays of light coming out of these kind of light wings. They don't really make much sense because it's like a completely conceptual idea and thing. It's not a physical thing. You're seeing this weird plastic that's meant to be representing light, which is very hard to portray in a miniature. So I think going down a more winged route is weirdly a bit more of a classic sort of style, a bit like what we've been seeing with vampires, a bit more of a return to what we would understand as kind of classic Warhammer. So I think the move for the Stormcast is probably a good idea.
I mean, what's interesting to me about the Stormcasts is it's already an absurdly massive range of minis, and there are some really great additions to it. But most of the most interesting attributes of the Stormcast are the beasts. It's the dudes riding around on massive winged dragons, or the guy on the little kind of like lizard dog creature, or the fella riding around on the Pegasus that's also like a Minotaur or something. Like there's some really gorgeous mounts to the Stormcast Eternals, but the Stormcast Eternals are super boring. I just think the problem is with them, they're just really, really uninspiring, sort of, much less kind of personality than the Marines, but they obviously borrow so heavily from that aesthetic. And again, I don't want to necessarily suggest that I don't understand the charm of them, but for me, they are the most uninteresting part of Age of Sigmar. And this new range of more sleek minis that they've done with the spears and the new shields and stuff look like the worst, Stormcasts I've seen added to the range. I prefer kind of the pre-existing range of Stormcasts over and above these spear-wielding people. The kind of Terminator-esque Stormcast Eternal, the big bulky one with the extra padding, that's certainly an interesting thing. But I'll be honest with you, the illustration was far more exciting and interesting than the actual mini itself. I felt like actually they made a big mistake by showing us the illustration and then following it up with the actual mini, because it was like, oh, that's what it actually looks like. Much less kind of.
I think actually on the day they showed the mini first and then the artwork afterwards, and it's one of those things where the article's in the wrong order.
Yeah, so the article is mini, then artwork. When they unveiled it, the artwork came, and then the mini followed. But regardless, I think, like the fact they're doing more Stormcast, great, cool. But the thing I wanted to see, and the thing that was horrendously absent from this, is what are they up against? What faction are we going to see these guys fight against? Because that's going to be the interesting thing. The most interesting thing about Age of Sigmar 2 was not the Stormcast Eternals, it was the Night Haunters. What are we seeing in this instance? And I think the fact that they finished this entire process of talking about Age of Sigmar 3 and didn't show even one, sculpt, or just give us a little bit of silhouette of what they're going to be facing up against. Because that really, within the context of Age of Sigmar, is what's going to be interesting. It's not these golden warriors clad in incredible armor. It's the fantastical, high fantasy, magical beasts that they're going to be going to war against. And that's the thing I want to see. And I think that's the thing. It's like, it just all felt a little bit underwhelming. I mean, don't get me wrong, that mini with the wings that you were referring to earlier, it's a great mini. Looks cool. I hope it's got a helmeted option, because, I think that would definitely make it look better. But yeah, it's all right. I mean, it's, a Stormcast Eternal on some steps with some big wings. Yay. But yeah, I just think, again, I think in a way it's strange that Games Workshop feel like the Stormcast Eternal needs to be the poster child of Age of Sigmar, whereas to me it seems like there's just so many better things in Age of Sigmar right now. I'd rather have had trolls versus vampires, or ogres versus giants, or something, something much more fantastical. I think that would have been fun.
I mean, it's interesting because obviously they've just pretty much finished showing off all of the vampires. It's like, if they could have almost saved that for this new edition, and if they had come out the gate with vampires on that box, whether it was against Stormcast or not, I think that would have almost been more of a winner than in comparison to what anything else they can come up with. Like, I think vampires are such a home run for them. It's going to be hard to top that with the new release, and maybe that's why they didn't want to show it straight away, because they've literally only just gotten off showing us what those kits are like. So I think in terms of a release, it would have been great if they had just given us like more in terms of, here's the box set, here's what you're getting, because that is more of a proper reveal. To just sort of tease a few models, while fantastic, it makes it feel a bit more underwhelming in terms of a general, this is how we're promoting the new edition. In terms of the lady, what's her name, Urindrasta, the winged lady, I think is a phenomenal model. Helmet version, cool. I don't mind it without a helmet on. I think, I could almost see people reusing this to be like a Saint Celestine model conversion, almost like a head swap, turn it into Sanguinus for Horus Heresy, with maybe a bit of armor detail having to be changed, or some other kind of like cool Inquisitor model, because I think it's just be interesting to see the scale of it, because it feels like it's so much bigger than the normal human would be. But yes, like an incredible sculpt. The other guys with the spears and spears and shields are okay. I see what you mean about they're a bit odd looking in terms of, I'm so used to looking at Stormcast being really blocky and chunky. The fact that these seem a bit more streamlined seems a bit odd, but I do love I thought it was more Gravis rather than Terminator. The Gravis heavy option, the heavier armored Stormcast, I think it looks pretty phenomenal. I'm sure we'll see some 40k conversions for that as well.
Oh yeah. All I'm going to say is, think about all the Age of Sigmar stuff we've seen over just even the last 3 months, right? We had Curse City, which phenomenal range of miniatures, incredible human heroes, combined with, fantastical zombies and creatures of the nights and all that kind of stuff. We've seen the slan from the Seraphon and what that represents and how beautiful that mini is. We've seen the new Slaanesh demon models that they're going to be adding. We've seen even like new Sylvaneth kits. We saw the the new god of destruction, this fantastical beast, and obviously the vampires, as we spoke about earlier. You're just looking at this stuff and going, wow, this looks like one of the best looking games in the world. Like, you and I were saying last week, like, it's so hard not to want to play Age of Sigmar when you look at all this. And then when it comes to the new edition, it's Stormcast again. And it's just takes the wind out of your sails. I just genuinely feel, look, and here's the thing. Obviously, all of this stuff is still in there, and Age of Sigmar still has these incredible ranges. But it staggers me that Games Workshop lead with Stormcast because they're the most uninteresting part. And I just, honestly, you just feel, when you look at like the most fantastical miniatures, I mean, obviously Be'lakor has just come out and he is gorgeous. All these incredible minis that they've done for that range. The new giant kit. Wow, just amazing, right? So good. And then it's just, and it's a little weird gold guy with a spear.
Later.
Nah.
Yeah, I think they do slowly learn the lesson. And if you look at AOS 1, when that first came out, all the Stormcast had like zero personality. They were all helmeted. They were all weird, bright, shining heroes. That's the end of it. And AOS 2, they toned down even the logo. They made it a bit more gritty and dirty. You finally saw a bit more of humanity in the Stormcast. Like, they had models without helmets on, so you actually got to see that they were real people inside. There was a bit more of a kind of fallen backstory to them, that every time they die and get reforged, they lose a bit of their personality. And they're sort of, I think, learning that kind of concept of, we need to humanize them to make them more interesting. And I think they are injecting that into the models. And I think these more almost like human proportioned ones are probably going to lean into that even more. It'd be interesting to see what they do with the story, I think. And I think, yes, they've led with Stormcast. People will roll their eyes. People do that every time there's a new edition of 40k, and it's surprise, got Space Marines on it, the Ultramarines. It's like, it happens. I guess you kind of got to get used to it. But with AOS, it's like, as you say, the more interesting armies are all the other armies, and there's tons of them to pick from. It's like, if I wanted to get into AOS, I'm literally like paralyzed by the fact that there's so many good choices. I struggle to pick one. It's like, we talked about it. Tim, the friend of the show, who's sometimes on here, was really trying to get us into AOS last year. We all sort of dabbled and looked around. It's like, I was really torn between Seraphon, because I've got an old Seraphon army, and Caradron Overlords, because I used to collect dwarves, so I love those two. But then, Vampires has arrived. God, they're just stunning models. I think what they need to do is lean more into that kind of humanity side of it. And, if they redo Cities of Sigmar and refresh that range, I'd love to see what they would do with the everyday humans. And I've said it before, Codex Surf is like the everyday humans, the dregs of society from 40k is often the most interesting aspects of the background, which is why I loved that old lady model that they gave on the 40k preview. It's like, if they do that for AOS, but for an entire faction in terms of Cities of Sigmar, God, I can imagine that just being so good. And you just look at the Cursed City models, like and the Vampire Slayer Hunter that's coming out separately. It's like, the regular humans for AOS will just be amazing.
And that's the thing. That's what I want to see more of. Again, everything that they've done over the last year for Age of Sigmar has been incredible. Even the cow elves, they had a lot of personality. They had a lot of cool elements to them. Yeah, like, again, Stormcast just feel really, really uninteresting in that world. But again, regardless of that, again, it's interesting that Age of Sigmar 3 is coming into effect. In terms of Age of Sigmar and things that exist in Age of Sigmar that I want to see kind of more represented in 40k, which was this kind of topic that we wanted to sort of, bring it back around to a 40k related topic. I think one of the things about Age of Sigmar that I love, and one of the things that is obviously really important for Age of Sigmar, is how they have managed to integrate these really fantastical characters onto the tabletop, and how they've been able to sort of at least, from a broad perspective, been able to write rules that really benefit you from having these big fantastical characters and, you know, these linchpin units that you build your armies around. The idea that you have these incredible godlike generals that everything is kind of built around, and, you know, they inject so much more personality into that army because you have that real beautiful sense of scale and these really incredible minis. Now, obviously, you're seeing that with, you know, some miniatures. You are going to be able to run Be'lakor in your Chaos armies very soon for 40k, and he is going to facilitate that. But I want to see more of that in 40k. I want to see those big, fantastic characters and those kind of sculpts that really kind of do things to make the game really interesting. I find at the moment with 40k, it's very... it just lacks that personality sometimes, in so much as it's more about the overarching army than it is about certain interesting elements. And I like that in Age of Sigmar aesthetically. Maybe I won't like it as much when I see it play out in gameplay terms, but I think it's a very visually interesting looking game. I mean, rules wise, I'm not really that well versed in Age of Sigmar right now to know for certain what needs to come across. But yeah, I think just that visual is cool. Anyway, sorry, Phil.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, in a way, I like the difference. It's like AOS does have like one big model. 40k has it to a smaller extent. You know, you've got your Supreme Leader detachments coming in. So you are sort of getting a bit more of these centerpiece models. But I do like that 40k quite often is built up a bit more with that everyman aspect, especially for armies like Guard. It's like you can't really have like a big model that represent a big superhuman that could represent that faction. But then maybe you could have a High Lord, for example, in a mech suit. So in a way, they are bringing it in for sure.
Yeah, some more of that's cool. I know, you know, you can have Commissar Yarrick on his command Baneblade or whatever.
Yeah, that's true. In a way, I like the difference. So it's like I like the 40k is made up more of an army as opposed to one fantastic model with some other scattering bits around. Because then quite often it's like, and this is a slight drawback with AOS to an extent, armies that do have that linchpin unit all have it. And you then get very samey looking armies. So if I'm just trying to think, well, you know, if every undead army's got Nagash, for example, that looks a bit generic. But in a way, it's less of an issue for AOS because there's so many factions. And what I like about AOS is they're just churning out new factions constantly. I guess the downside is once you've collected an army, if you go, oh, I want to do Fire Slayers, let's say, because they're like one of the first ones that they did, there's almost no support for that faction in terms of new models coming out for older factions, unless you're Stormcast, of course. Obviously, you get the odd character model here and there. It's a bit like, imagine 40k, and once they've done the Orc army, that's it. And it's like, I appreciate a lot of people say that about a lot of the Xenos armies. They don't get a lot of love and support, but they are sort of going around and slowly updating them. But I would love it if 40k just churned out new factions at the same rate that AOS did.
Yeah, I'd love it. I think that is something that definitely is needed. I think that kind of creativity within the Age of Sigmar realm. But again, they've just got so much they can play with. And you saw it demonstrated with Phil Kelly, where he's just literally stood there just going, a bunch of made-up words, lovely, lovely stuff. Over there is a thing, yeah, whatever. And it's like, yeah, okay, cool. It's like literally like, you know those like weird little jokes about like branding or like media professionals where they're all just sat around on bean bags coming up with any old nonsense. It's sort of like that's what I imagine Phil Kelly's job is now. He just literally is sat on a beanbag somewhere in the Games Workshop headquarters, smoking a pipe and just being like, "What we should do is nonsense." And yeah, I mean, he literally just gets paid to make up any old stuff now, and it's incredible. I mean, I'm sure he's got to verify it and stick a bunch of meaning to it and be really creative around it. And I'm sure it's an incredibly complex process in what he's involved with because he's creating all of these universes and characters and lore and everything. But yeah, I mean, what a job. But it's evident within Age of Sigmar they're just throwing everything at the wall and seeing what they can come up with. And it is an inspiring looking system in terms of the range and the models. But yeah, in terms of the game, it's going to be interesting to understand what they're going to add to free to really enhance it. But as we're not Age of Sigmar players, we're not going to really speak with very much authority on that topic. But it's interesting. Third edition of Age of Sigmar, worthy topic to discuss on the show, even though it's not 40k related. But as a reveal went, I think it was probably one of the weakest aspects of Warhammer Fest, even though it's Age of Sigmar 3. I just didn't think they did it justice.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And there's one other thing that I really like about AOS, and this is the main points that I think they do better than 40k, is it feels like there's a distinct timeline and story that you get to participate in. A bit like how they've done it with Horus Heresy. All the books come out slowly and you can play that book. When AOS first came out, I think, was it like the Gate Wars, for example, and then I think last year you had the Soul Wars, and there was like the Necroquake, and every bit of story introduces new factions, new ways to play. And I sort of almost feel like we really missed that bandwagon. That's the one thing that I'd really like to have done, is to have got in AOS from the beginning, to play all of those stories and feel like you're playing a constant evolving timeline in that world. And it's something they're probably going to do with 40k, like with the Indomitus Crusade, but you haven't really seen it yet, because I think they sort of realised their mistake and went back a bit. So was it 7th edition? They were like, there's Primaris Marines, and there's is it got it 8th edition?
8th edition, yeah.
They were like, there's Primaris Marines, and there's been an Indomitus Crusade, and the Indomitus Crusade has happened, and everyone has Primaris Marines. And then this 9th edition, get my edition numbers right, they've gone, oh, actually, cool, we're going to go back a bit and talk about that Indomitus Crusade and explore that in detail, and we're going to start shipping off all of these fleets across the universe in a kind of, not universe, galaxy, to do the fight back. And it'd be interesting to see what they do next. And it's like, I want that progressive storyline happening in 40k, which they haven't really ever done. It's always been a very stagnant storyline, and it only now feels like they're starting to move it along. But it's something that they've always done with AOS that I've always just been really jealous of.
Yeah, I tried to play AOS at the start. I bought the box set. I bought into it. I got some Stormcast, even though I didn't really like them that much. But I just sort of was like, wow, it's what came in the box. Give it a go. It was terrible. Early Age of Sigmar was so bad. It just didn't make any sense. They didn't have points. They didn't have anything.
Well, I think that put a lot of people off. Yeah.
Well, I
didn't. I liked it as a concept, but yeah.
It was a bad series of decisions. I mean, and obviously they've done an amazing job in turning it into what it is now. And I think this 3rd edition of it is going to be a really strong rule set that I think is going to really allow us to bring that kind of gameplay to life in a really interesting way. But yeah, we'll see. I own a bunch of trolls. I own a bunch of goblins. I'm going to see what this edition is all about, and maybe I'll dust off my goblin-y trolls and,
Well, what's your speculation for the swamp things that will be in the new box that they teased in that very obscure video at the very end?
I've honestly no idea. I'd like it to be Skaven. I'd like the Skaven to get updated. I think the Skaven would be a really cool... Because the thing is, at the moment, Skaven kind of sit within the Chaos faction because of all their kind of like warp magic and all the rest of it. But I think there's a logic that you could make a destruction-style Skaven force that's more kind of built around their more kind of brutal, ratty instincts as opposed to all their weird, warpstone side of things. But everyone's saying it's going to be goblin wolf rider things, so I feel like that's probably where it's going to net out. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, again, if it's more goblins, great, because I mean, as I say, goblins is what I'm trying to collect in Age of Sigmar. I mean, I have collected them in so much as I own the miniatures. I just haven't done anything with them. But yeah, more goblins would be cool, because that is what I have. So yeah, and that warband from Underworlds
is
gorgeous. So yeah, more of that would be would be really cool to see. But whatever the case, right? I mean, whatever it is, it can only be better than those Stormcast, in my opinion.
No. Yeah, I was hoping it was going to be, or I am hoping it's going to be Famir, the long-lost race of the weird one-eyed Hero Quest models. Because they are, and this is the thing that they're doing with 40k and AOS, they're really rummaging through their back catalogue of old lore minis, that kind of Rogue Trader era. They love to pull out something to reuse. They said in the release of that, the Delac updates, that weird floating alien skull thing.
Yes.
Referenced from in a page of Rogue Trader, for example. So they do love to do that sort of thing, and obviously they're swamp creatures, so it would sort of make sense. But yeah, as you're right, the general internet rumors going around is that it's hobgoblins on wolves, so it's more likely to be that.
I mean, they might be not far behind as well, but yeah, Famir would be incredible to see those guys return, just because of the history of them, how they appeared in Hero Quest. And yeah, no, I would be very happy with that. I think that would be cool. But I guess we'll wait and see. But there you go. That's Age of Sigmar. I mean, again, it's Age of Sigmar free. I appreciate this is a 40k podcast. Most of you aren't going to care about Age of Sigmar, but we felt like it was necessary to address the fact, because it is a significant update in the world of Warhammer in the general sense. So obviously, apologies if this isn't for you. That's why we use timestamps, because if it wasn't for you, you simply needed to click along. But on the topic of clicking along or moving along, we're going to move on to the last segment of this extraordinarily free segment podcast, where we're going to talk about that new High Lord of Terror and what a stat line looks like and what we think about that in the context of 40k. And then we'll do an outro, and then we'll all be happy and go home. But before then, transitional noise. Woo! Welcome back again, everyone. In this part of the podcast, we're going to talk about Morvenn Vahl, the High Lord of Terror that is also an Adeptus Sororitas, that is also a lady in a mech suit. How does she perform within the context of 40k, the game? This is an article from Warhammer Community that expands on that, and we're going to talk about it because it's interesting 40k stuff. So, Phil, I put it to you to tell me what this fine warrior of the Adeptus Sororitas has in way of a stat line.
Well, it's well good for starters. She has a movement of 8 inches, a weapon skill and a ballistic skill of 2+. Ooh. She has a strength and toughness of 5. She's got 8 wounds, so enough to just be under that lookout rule. 5 attacks, leadership 9, not 10. Interesting. But seems appropriate. And she has a 2+ save.
I mean, that is every bit the healthy stat line. That, means that she is more statrific than Marnius Calgar, for example. More wounds, more strength, same leadership, I believe, same save, more movement. So, yes, compared to the chapter master of the Ultramarines, her stats are superior.
Well, as to be expected in my mind. Look, it says she's wearing an ancient relic restored by the Fabricator General of Mars himself.
Who's the Fabricator General of Mars? Is that old Call again?
No. Well, in one book, Call was petitioning Gilliman to be made the Fabricator General, and he was denied it. In another book, Call actually says that wasn't actually him. That was just his sort of slightly AI copy of him that was doing it. And he's like, I don't want that job. I don't know why I would be saying that, but maybe that's just inconsistencies in writers and Black Library.
Well, that's it.
One is explaining the other.
The strange weirdness of Belisarius Call being a bunch of different people in one. Yes, what a fine example of 40k writing in terms of the madness that is that character. I mean, look, stat lines are stat lines, right? We will at some point in the future actually go a bit more in depth on that, because we were asked by a member of our glorious community to expand on the notion of loads of stuff having ballistic skill 2+, and what does that mean? And actually, it does have a wider implication to the rule set that actually I think is quite interesting to talk about. But yeah, I think, look, I mean, to preface this from the outset, and I said this to Phil, and I said it even in the last episode, I love the fact that the Sororitas are getting a Lord of War Supreme Commander character. I love the fact that there's a new one of these for the Imperium, and that it is, a human High Lord that can potentially be indoctrinated into your armies of Astra Militarum, or even your Mechanicus, given her, mechanized suit of armor, giving her some kind of credibility within those realms. My frustration when it comes to these sorts of decisions is when you introduce characters and you reward them with such healthy stat lines that characters of great renown don't necessarily share. I'm not super into the idea that this absolutely new character, which is essentially a human in a robot suit, has over, established characters like Dante or Astra, Adeptus Astartes characters like Calgar and Dante and these guys that, are the most elite warriors in the Imperium. The idea that, a human can get into a robot suit and then is the better of Marneus Calgar. I'm not entirely into this, but again, I understand that often the rules don't necessarily reflect the lore, and ultimately Calgar has to be what he is within the rule set because Guilliman exists and yada, 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 and maybe they'll change that in the future. But yeah, it's just one of those things where I'm a bit like, oh, I kind of feel like Calgar would run up to this, person in a tin can and, beat him up.
Well, I think you're doing that tin can some injustice, to be fair. I love it. In order of hierarchy and rank, you've got, the Emperor, you've got Guilliman, you've got the High Lords. Under that, you've got Chapter Masters. So I think
Chapter Masters exist completely separate of that command infrastructure. They're
High Lords are still above Chapter Masters. Come on now.
Well, it depends how you interpret the way that chapters work. Chapters are, in many respects, Space Marine chapters are essentially independent of the Imperium in many respects, even though they are of the Imperium.
I would disagree with you because even Inquisitors are technically above Chapter Masters. Chapter Masters could, by all rights, just ignore them, which they do.
Yes,
but I would still say High Lords, Chapter Masters. Below.
Yeah, I mean, because Inquisitors are above Chapter Masters in the sense that they are, the Emperor's word made manifest, as they say in games and stuff. But the thing is that it doesn't mean that Space Marine Chapter Masters care. Because they're not, their agreements to side and work with Inquisitors is done with a degree of, it's just done with a degree of not speculation, but just skepticism or general kind of, frustration towards that aspect of it. They are kind of their own thing, but irrespective of where they fit within the hierarchical structure, again, the bloke who looks after, I don't know, all the scribes and stuff, I wouldn't expect him to be better than Marneus Calgar. It's that sort of thing.
Well, I think that they've been clever in as much as I want the guy with scribes on a battlefield on some kind of, engine of war would be fantastic. I think they've sensibly gone for the warrior woman who is actually going to be the very best fighter that the sisters have to offer. And in addition, they've sort of souped her up with an exoskeleton that's meant to be of the highest quality material and design humanly possible. So I can buy into the fact that, she's got a stat line better than Calgar. Could she really go toe-to-toe with him, like lore-wise? Maybe it's meant to be about equal, who knows? But I can sort of see the pitch of she is meant to be so damn good. I think here this is a bit like where we talked about the beast snaggers and the bits of their bodies missing. It's like we haven't really seen much of her lore, so we sort of really do need to understand more about her first to help buy into that stat line and what she represents and who is she better or not better than on the battlefield.
Yeah, I suppose that's the thing, right? I mean, comparing her stat line to a Nemesis Dread Knight, which is, I think, a pretty fair comparison, She's got the same movement, better weapon skill, better ballistic skill, lower strength and toughness, much less wounds as well. She's got 8 wounds, where a Nemesis Dreadnought has 12. She's got more attacks than a Nemesis Dreadnought, higher leadership, and the same save. So it's one of those things that when you kind of obviously look at it, the Nemesis Dreadnought is obviously bigger in stature, but it's strange to me that a Grey Knight wouldn't have more attacks, especially, but again, that's just where I sort of find it weird. But then the Nemesis Dreadnought is still now one of those weird, it's an 8th edition rule set within 9th edition thing. Who knows what it'll become.
Not exactly.
When it goes across. But anyway, what's the next thing, Phil?
She's got the Purgator Mirabilis warsuit. So the model has a 4-up invulnerable save, and then each time she takes a mortal wound, she also ignores it on a 4-up, which is dead good.
Yeah, and it makes sense, right? Because again, the Emperor protects in the way of the sisters, and yeah, I totally agree that one of the highest members of the order of the Adeptus Sororitas should be able to be shrugging more wounds on a 4+, assuming that she is embodying all of those kind of holy elements. Again, not knowing what the other sisters' rules are going to be, I would like to see this for Celestine as well, because if you're going to give it to... But maybe it's just an extension of the suit and how it augments her powers and other bits and pieces. So maybe Celestine doesn't get the same kind of vibe. But yeah, interesting for sure. And 4-up invuln is a 4-up invuln, right? It's pretty standard. So yeah, no complaints there.
It's not crazy broken. It's not 3-up invuln, which I think they've, some units do have it, but they're really trying to get rid of that nowadays, it seems. So, I think 4-up invulns being the best that should really be in the game, I think is a good idea.
Agreed.
And then she's got the Holy Aegis. So she basically halves, rounding up all of the attack damage that she receives.
Massive, right? I mean, now, even if you hit her with, a damage 8 weapon, such as a Paragon Gauntlet, it only becomes 4.
Yeah.
Which is cool. It does still mean that Imperial Knight, I suppose, if it gets into combat with her, as long as it gets 2 attacks through, you're still toast. But, it's better than 1.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it and you go, oh my God, the rules are so broken. Like, she's so good. It's like, she can die to small arms fire pretty easily. Or, something like bolters, or, something that can do lots of damage free, which there's plenty of around. Like a couple of hits of some good weapons, and she fails those saves, she could go down. So she seems tough, but I don't think she's probably as tough as people are going to imagine she is.
And that Holy Aegis is, again, I mean, Calgar has that ability where he halves damage. So yeah, very similar in that regard as well, which is quite interesting. She's got this Lance of Illumination, which is quite an incredible title, which has Sweeping Blow and Lunging Strike. As a Sweeping Blow, it is range melee, strength user, which as we earlier established was 5, AP -2 and 1 damage. Each time you attack is made with this weapon, make 2 hit rolls instead of 1. So essentially, you are multiplying your attacks to 10.
Yeah.
Although it's weird, isn't it, actually, when you read that and it says make 2 hit rolls instead of 1. Does that mean I'm just rolling 2 dice to see if I hit? Or does that mean that I'm rolling 2 extra attacks?
I'm confused. Is that not the same thing? You're basically rolling 10 dice.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though, but I don't know how it's worded otherwise. I feel like that's the first time I've read one of those where it's worded that way. Let me just...
make a hit roll rather than an attack roll.
Yeah, so hang on. Let me check a Imperial Knight of some description. Knight Gallant. Knight Gallant, right? So when you read the Titanic Fig... Oh, no, same wording. Make 3 hit rolls for each attack made with this weapon instead of 1. Fine. Yeah, fine. So, yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, again, I was being relatively pedantic there. It's clear that's what they intended. I just didn't know whether it was a weird little inconsistency to how other things were written. And then you got the Lunging Strike, which is strength +3, which is going to make her strength 8, -3, flat 3 damage. Each time an attack is made with this weapon profile on an unmodified wound roll of 6, the target suffers 1 mortal wound in addition to normal damage. very similar to swords like Azrael's sword or other kind of special characters that have that access. But obviously the strength +2 and the -3 and the flat 3 damage, pretty tasty. So 5 attacks at strength 8, -3 flat 3 damage. Pretty good. Not terrifying though, because I mean, you know, even hitting on 2s, she's not going to necessarily have any re-rolls unless, of course, you're using like miracle dice or some other kind of combination of abilities.
Her, aura abilities that she has below.
Yes, but she won't benefit from her own auras, right?
There's 2. So there's one that affects core, and then one that affects core and characters. So she could. So she's effectively a chapter master in that respect. So she could nominate herself for the rerolls.
Gotcha. Well, assuming that is how that goes, then yeah, okay, fair enough. Then maybe the ability to do that, but even then, 3 damage, right? Say you got all 5 attacks to hit. And say you then followed up with getting all 5 attacks to wound, which is highly unlikely, but say you did it, you know, you're maxing out at 15 damage, right? Which, okay, fair enough, will kill a lot of light vehicles, but you're still going to be, you know, stuck with some big problems potentially.
Yeah, I mean, you're not killing a knight in a turn.
No, which is, unless, of course, you factor in her ranged, you know, offense as well, but... Yeah, because again, in terms of a range, Phil, what's her range weapon?
So she's got the Paragon missile launcher. It has 2 profiles, a bit like the weapon, a bit like the lance. So she's got the Sanctorum missile, which is range 36 inches, heavy 2d6, strength 4, AP 0, 1 damage. So a nice like chaff killer. And then she's got the Prioris missile, which is range 36, heavy 2, strength 8, -2, d6 damage.
So she's got a Typhoon missile launcher.
Yeah, pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. I like a Typhoon missile launcher as much as the next guy, although unlike a Typhoon missile launcher, these are range 36, not 48. So they're not as good as a Typhoon missile launcher.
Yeah, and I believe she's got some kind of heavy bolter as well, but they've not given us the stats for that because it may.
I mean, it looks quite heavy boltery, doesn't it?
Yeah, obviously it's probably going to be a relic of some kind and be better than a normal heavy bolter, but you know, who knows what it'd be like. 3 damage heavy bolter probably.
Yeah, I just double checked the Typhoon missile launcher. Yeah, it's range 48. So yeah, it's the exact same stat line, just reduced range. So yeah, so not as good as a Terminator with a Typhoon missile launcher. There you go, that's interesting. And then in terms of her abilities that Phil spoke about earlier, the Abyss or Abyss. Sanctorum is an aura. While friendly Adeptus Sororitas core units are within 6 of this model, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, reroll hit rolls of 1 and reroll wound rolls of 1. That's massive. Yeah. So she's both a lieutenant and a captain rolled into 1. And then lastly, she's got Commander of the Adeptus Sororitas. In your command phase, select 1 friendly Adeptus Sororitas core and Adeptus Sororitas character unit within 6 of this model to the start of your next command phase. Each time a model in that unit makes an attack, you can re-roll the hit roll and re-roll the wound roll. Wow. Okay.
Good.
That's big. Yeah. So that's better than a chapter master.
Yeah.
Wowzers. Okay. All right. Well, that's better than Gilliman, really, because she's giving a re-roll 1s and re-roll 1 wound aura, and she's giving a unit the ability to re-roll everything. Gilliman gives you the ability to re-roll everything in terms of hits, but only allows you to re-roll 1s to wounds. So she actually is a superior commander in some regards.
Yeah, but you've also got to understand, you know, what she's buffing. She's buffing sisters, which, while good, are not Space Marines. So
true.
I think the key here will be what ends up being core units in what gets those buffs. Because obviously things like Repentia are kind of like seen as the must-have unit for sisters at the moment. I doubt they will be in the new book because they're likely to get toned down. But I can imagine they won't be core because they're not your standard like battle line sisters. They're slightly more esoteric in terms of a unit in comparison.
Indeed. One of the things I keep scrolling back and forth between is if there is a different head sculpt between the segment that says Paragon missile launcher and the actual face that you see on the larger view. Is that a different head or a different paint job?
I think it's just a different angle, so it does look a bit different, but I'm sure it's the same.
Yeah,
It does
Maybe.
look, one looks more snarlier than the other. I mean, it could well be you get several heads and a helmeted option, a bit like Abaddon. Abaddon. Yeah, so they have done that sort of thing before, so I wouldn't be too surprised if maybe you get a couple of different options.
Yeah, look, I mean, here's the thing, right? She's doing nothing to massively amplify the forces of the Imperium, which feels like a bit of a misstep for someone that is themselves a member of the, High Lords of Terror. You would imagine that they would hold a position of office sufficient enough to inspire other members of the Imperium, much like how Guilliman has abilities that benefit broader Imperium units. Stat line is obviously better than some Space Marine related units, but actually when you break it down, I'm struggling to see where the real X factor is with this unit. Sure, she's going to run in and do some damage to some units of free wound things, and she's got some missile launchers and a heavy bolter, we assume, which is going to get some work done. But yeah, I don't know. I was expecting better. I mean, I purposely didn't read this until we went through it right now, so as I could give a genuine first impression. And maybe someone on the internet has, cracked the code in such a way as to suggest that this is going to be super strong. And maybe within the context of an Adeptus Sororitas army, having this as a lingering threat is actually going to really enhance various parts of your army in really interesting ways. But without knowing what that Adeptus Sororitas book looks like, it's difficult for me to assert where her true potential lies. A lot of it's going to come down to points. I honestly feel like where Guilliman's 380 points, Calgar's 200 points, she obviously feels like that she needs to be somewhere between that. Based on what I'm reading, I'd probably lean towards the 280 level. I think she's probably 100 points less than Guilliman for sure, because she ain't no Guilliman, but she's better than Calgar, so that's a pretty reasonable benchmark. But yeah, I don't know. I'm intrigued. I am intrigued. I think it's an interesting addition. She wasn't nearly as absurd as I thought. She's definitely not Demon Prince Mortarion or something of that ilk. She's no Silent King.
Well, that's assuming she doesn't have more rules. So obviously this is just a preview that she may have a ton of extra stuff, which might take her to that level. I mean, but who knows, right? And as you say, I think the points will come down to whether she's going to be like a really auto-include or just like a nice thematic model to have. Obviously, if we think back to one of the HQ choices that was released when Sisters first got done, there was the lady on the kind of floating plinth.
Yes.
With it's like, never seen that in play, never seen anyone use it. It's like a really cool HQ model for Sisters, and it just seems like it's one of those things when everyone's gone, I either don't like that sort of sub-faction for Sisters, or it's not a competitive unit, so no one seems to take it. I'm sure there are some people out there that do, but it just seems like one of those ones that have been washed over and everyone's going, I'm taking Celestine instead. So great that there's an extra one in as well with the High Lord. As you said, I sort of wish she had some buffs for Imperium as a whole. I sort of could understand if they don't, but it might be there are some rules, but we just haven't seen it. Even if it's just a leadership aura, something a bit rubbish like that. And the other thing is, I think she might be really good if the Paragon war suits themselves are core units, because she can run up with them, buff them, or buff 2 squads of them potentially, or buff one of them and herself, but still also be protected by the Lookout Sir rule. And honestly, it seems like she's going to have her own detachment, sort of special detachment from Book of Rust 2, which may all be warsuit themed. Who knows? That's my guess, but which would be fantastic. And I look at her and go, oh, I'd love her plus some Paragon warsuits as like a little allied detachment for all my Imperium units. Or I'd almost be tempted to just buy her and convert her up to just make her a very cool looking Inquisitor, for example, to try and fit it more thematically and with the rest of my army.
I mean, she would be one hell of an Inquisitor. I don't know necessarily what Inquisitor you're going to run her as. I assume it was that dude who sits on the chair or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. Or just run her as her own stat line, but visually go, oh yeah, she's an Inquisitor.
I mean, you are right about old Junif Iriot or whatever her name was, the lady on the floating staircase. I mean, that is a fantastic mini. The weirdest thing about it, though, as they say, as a fantastic mini goes, though, it is one of those minis that, although it is really quite cool, it's also a bit weird as a sort of silhouette and as a set of sort of like proportions and things. It's sort of it's a strange one. It was always one of those ones where it was like, it was almost there, but it wasn't quite right to me. But yeah, no, I mean, you know, dealing with the character in question, Morvenn Vahl seems interesting. I just want to hear more about her in the lore. I want that part expanded. I want her to earn her place. I want to know why she is the badass character that they are telling me she's going to be. And I think that's the thing that I want expanded. Again, yeah, that's the stuff I want to get my head around is you know, hearing about her accolades and why she is what she is. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like she seems like such an interesting character. It's like, tell us more.
Yeah, 100%. Tell me more. Much like, again, as I said last time, Belisarius Call was a really underwhelming release when they first put him out, but now he's integrated into everything and he's super interesting because he's just so, you know, the addition of Belisarius Core and what they've done with him is so enriched the lore of 40k. So to me, he's now an integral part of it, whereas this one I'm a bit like, what is it? And that's the thing. And that's why I get a little bit nerd ragey when it's like, oh, better than Calgar, a human in a robot. What?
I mean, how do you think they should be teasing these characters more in books beforehand? Like, do you think it would have been better if some of the like Black Library novels, like, because there was one set on Terra that did specifically deal with High Lords? I mean, do you think it would have been better if she was more of a prominent figure and got, you know, not just, you know, because I don't think she's in it as a name check, but it'd be great if she was in it, a bit more of an established character that you would, I mean, the thing is, most people wouldn't even then go, I still don't know who she is, but you then get some people go, well, she's actually in a couple of these books.
And maybe, you know, here's the thing, maybe that is the case. I mean, I'm pretty sure it isn't, but I don't know. I could be wrong. She could already be in the lore in lots of places, but again, Games Workshop have widely publicized that their strategy for releases is the studio makes stuff and the rules writers figure out what they're going to be after the fact. You know, when the team created this, did they think she was going to be a High Lord of Terror? Probably not. They just thought she was going to be the special character version of the new war suits. And, you know, the rules team embellished it and turned it into this High Lord of Terror character and added all these extra layers because, you know, that was a really great way of expanding it and making it more interesting. And that's great. It's great. Like, you know, it's cool. But that's the thing. It's like, that's where the weirdness of their system comes into play because they can't seed an idea because a lot of the time the development studio just go, or the model making studio just rock up and go, here's the mini we've made. Give us some lore and rules. And it's like, okay, this. And then, you know, and then.
I mean, I imagine there is a bit more of a to and from chicken and egg situation, and it isn't just the miniature guys have gone, here's a model, and we've not discussed it with anyone, and we're in a complete silo on our own. I think, you know, sometimes that does happen, but I think quite often they do have these discussions and going, we're doing this character, and then the lore people will come in and have a discussion and go, oh, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And I think they have done that in the past. So
I imagine in terms of the development process, it's just they get shown so much. I mean, there must have been, you know, for all we know, there could be like 100 variants of this particular type of character. And maybe not 100, but, you know, there might be 10 different versions of this. And they were like, which one do you want to go with? What, you know, talk to us and figure it out. I mean, again, that's an only natural assumption, but they do lead with the miniatures. We know that much. They make cool stuff and then they make it fit. But yeah, regardless of how they got there, yeah, I just think that's the thing. I'm looking forward to her earning her place and you know, giving a bit more sort of status that makes that stat line and that rule set more meaningful. Because again, with all due respect, I get it. It's an Adeptus Sororitas. I get they're capable of incredible things. I get the whole way they work in game is awesome and all the rest of it. But again, I am just limited by the idea that they are still just people in power armor, and the Adeptus Astartes feel to me like they still need to be like, you know, elevated in that sense versus, you know, humans, regardless of any kind of augmentation or equipment, as it were. But again, I might be being a bit ridiculous when I say those kind of things because, you know, it's just cool. It is cool. I love the mini. I love the fact that they are making it with some interesting rules. It's just one of those things where it's a bit like, oh, you know, in that weird kind of like top trumps type mentality, I would have assumed that she wouldn't be quite on the same level as like a Calgar. But, you know, the thing is that I don't think the Calgar rules do a good enough job of representing how awesome he should be. I definitely don't think the Abaddon rules represent how awesome he should be. The Abaddon rules are ridiculously poor for what that model represents.
Well, that'll be interesting to see what he gets in the new edition if they fix that.
One of these days. But look, I mean, great model, nice rules, interesting discussion. Obviously, you know, be interested to hear what people listening along think and whether they're terrified by the prospect of what she represents. She seems all right to me. I don't, you know, nothing about that massively concerns me, but the points cost is where it's going to really matter. You know, when she, you know, if she's 120 points, we're going to have a problem, but I imagine they're going to net her out somewhere in the high 200s to low 300s based on what I've seen here. But obviously more rules to come, right?
Exactly.
Cool. All right, there we go. Good old Morvenn Vahl. Transitional noise. Woo! Phil.
What's that?
Phil, it's the end of the show, Phil. That bit where we do community questions and or other general ramblings. What can I say? I played a game against Joe Coles on the weekend.
Oh, how did that go?
Well, let me tell you, he used Dark Angels. I used a combination of Imperium type units. So Imperial Knights, Adeptus Custodes, and Adeptus Mechanicus. And I shot at the, Deathwing and Ravenwing combination. They didn't die. And then they ran at me and I was all dead. That was how that went.
Lovely. Is this his, as Joe will defend himself by saying he's got a very fluffy list?
Well, I mean, credit where credit due to him. It is a really fluffy list. And I would actually suggest that that's one of the great virtues of the modern 40k codexes is they are actually really fluffy and really powerful as their fluffy self, which is fantastic because that allows us to bring together the narratives in a really actually quite useful way. The way I would describe playing against that kind of Dark Angel list, though, and I did describe this way to you, on Monday, I would describe it as one of those old videos where people would attempt to blow up beached whales. So everyone's seen, like, I assume anyway, that video where there is a beached whale and they decide that the genius plan is that we will stuff it with TNT and then obviously blow it up. And the process of blowing up the whale will obviously evaporate it because obviously the power of the explosion will, turn it into atoms. But what actually happens is the vast majority of the whale carcass remains on the beach while flaming blubber descends from the atmosphere and destroys everything around it. That's
like
what fighting.
The episode of season 2 of The Boys.
Quite possibly, yeah. Oh, where he, well, yes, involving the whale. Quite different from that whole sequence, I suppose. But yeah, it's more the idea that you think that you are doing a good thing by shooting at it or trying to explode it, but it turns out that that's the worst thing you could have done. What would have been better is just to leave them alone in the first place. Just walk away.
On a way.
Walk away. Don't waste your time with them because they don't die and they keep coming at you. And eventually you run out of board and then they just smother you and then you're dead. And God, do they hit like a truck. Great army. And, always a pleasure.
Did you do the combo of the Apothecary from the Raven Wing to heal all the Deathwing Terminators?
Correct, yeah. He did all the good stuff.
All that really fluffy stuff, yeah.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, a Raven Wing apothecary wouldn't necessarily just, wouldn't want to necessarily favor just the Raven Wing units. It'd be helpful to all.
I'm not calling Joe out, but I don't think a Raven Wing Death Wing combo is that fluffy. And you can get into semantics about what is fluffy. Is fluffy something that's very lore based, but ultimately a very rubbish army, which I think is what it's always historically meant. Does fluffy just mean it's very lore accurate? In which case, I don't really think it's that. I think it's, I think Deathwing as an army on its own is quite iconic. I think Ravenwing on their own is very iconic. I think a few Deathwing units alongside the classic, what we'd call Green Wing, as in classic Death Watch. No, God, not Death Watch.
Dark Angels.
Dark Angels. Use words. I use words well. Good. If you have that's very iconic and classic and very like sort of second edition. Dark Angels. That's the word. I think that would be what I would call fluffy. I think taking two in isolation fluffy lists and combining them together isn't particularly fluffy. Sorry, Joe, but that's how I view it.
See, I would disagree with you, though, because, again, so much narrative has been built up around the first and second companies. So the idea of the second companies is they form part of the inner circle, although the second company, bizarrely, isn't in the inner circle, but they are made aware of the fallen.
They're the outer circle.
Yeah, they're the outer rim. Yes, they're the ring road. Yeah, that's it. That's why they're on the bikes, constantly going around the M25. But anyway, yeah, so they're not, well, aspects of the Raven Wing are in the inner circle. So like Black Knights are in the inner circle. Obviously Samael, the master of the Raven Wing, is in the inner circle.
Did Joe have those in his army?
He did not have any Black Knights and he did not have Samael, no.
So fluffy, so fluffy, Joe.
So fluffy. But, the whole idea is that the Raven Wing are used as the kind of main hunting pack. And then when they discover the Fallen, the army, the Deathwing descend from the teleportorium, whatever it is. They come out of the sky and then they spring their trap, as it were. So the synergies between Deathwing and Ravenwing are very well established throughout the fluff of Dark Angels. But I do understand where your criticisms lie. But I've been running Ravenwing and Deathwing in combination since 4th edition. But they didn't used to be any good.
Point. You're proving my
But they
point.
didn't used to be any good, Phil. That was the difference, right? They were awful. They did used to have teleport homers on the Ravenwing bikes, which meant that you could bring the Terminators in next to the bikes without them scattering. And that was where the synergy was kind of exploited. But you just basically did that and then nothing else happened because it was, it was just Space Marines in 4th and 5th and 6th and 7th edition, and they didn't ever really do enough. Unless, of course, you ran the insane formations, but Deathwing and Ravenwing didn't even have those, really. So, anyway, there you go. I digress. Should we do the community questions?
Oh, go on then.
Go on then. We asked questions about the things we would be talking about this evening, and our lovely, friendly community folk gave us some feedback. So go on then, Phil. Tell us what they said.
Indeed. I'll read out the top one from Folkstorm. It's a bit of a long one, so I'll try and get through it all in one go. He says, nice fest review, guys. For those of us who missed large parts of it, you brought the experience to life. So I don't think Orc is cool. Beast Snaggers, Snakebites aren't my favourite clan. I'm more of a Blood Axe kind of git. But they looks great, and it's interesting to see 40k greenskins blend more into AOS Orc design style. I like that they're getting bulkier. The Cadian upgrade sprue is super awesome, definitely getting some. I know folks were hoping for Catachans or generic regiment, but honestly that's perfectly portrayed by the Cadian stock. I hope GW will make regimental upgrade sprues a bit like Space Marines. I don't know how possible that is with Cadians, but maybe. He says, I was not on Team Plastic Krieg. I prefer resin, the medium of the artisans. He keeps going. It's a long one, sorry. AOS doesn't really do anything for me. Sure, the model range is predominantly awesome and inarguably full of technically beautiful models, but the universe misses by a long shot old school fantasy or Mordheim for me. And then lastly, he says, but if I was to do AOS, it would be Gargants and Mega Gargants. Keep up the good work, guys.
I mean, there's so much to unpack there, and in broad terms, he mostly just echoed my sentiments on certain things, right? So it's a bit sort of...
So you is right, is what you're saying.
Essentially, I mean, yeah, look, I mean, he said about getting more upgrade kits or kits for the guard to be able to, represent the different factions. Basically what he said. He said that he liked the beast snaggers and what they look like and how they're introducing some of those design prompts from the Iron Jaws and the other Orc ranges, and again, very much in alignment there. Around the Age of Sigmar stuff, I think that was pretty fair in terms of his feedback on that, and obviously him being more of a Mordheim fan is understandable because, like yourself, Phil, that kind of plays into that sort of Blanc-Jitsu style, hobbying and stuff that really kind of appeals in that regard. And then, and kind of closing around, the kind of... Did he mention anything on the sister's character? I can't remember.
He did not, no.
No, he didn't. I was going to say, I'm pretty sure he didn't. But yeah, look, I mean, I always really appreciate Toke's feedback on things and insights on stuff. I think he's always got some interesting perspectives on it. And he's obviously... What I like about Toke, he's always a really kind of like glass half full kind of guy about the hobby, and he's always got a kind of positive overview of what's going on with it, which is great to see. So yeah, he's a really encouraging guy to listen to and to draw inspiration from, because I always think he's got a good positive attitude, that guy. He's fun. He's a fun boy.
Oh, I 100% agree with that sentiment. For sure. Moving swiftly on, I'll go on to another person. We've got Cantor Blue, another regular. He says, although I was underwhelmed by the reveals on Tuesday, but the Beast Snagger release was brilliant. As my two main armies are Orcs and Chaos Space Marines, don't worry, I'll moan about the lack of 2 wounds again. Oops, he says. I love the revamped range of greenskins. I'll be hovering over the pre-order key as soon as they're available. And then he says, in terms of AOS, I've only recently started collecting Slaves to Darkness, and I'm really pleased to get the new edition and start playing.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing for someone like Cantor Blue to be able to, add more Orcs to his collection. Again, I'm obviously needing to point out the irony that he's called Cantor Blue, yet his armies are Orcs and Chaos Space Marines. I mean, if you want to talk about things that the Crimson Fists don't much like, it's almost like he's done it with a certain level of self-awareness around the choices.
Well, I mean, quite often I like the idea of collecting armies that are classic opponents. So when you've got them both out together, they look thematically like you got a mini diorama. So maybe he's done that.
That isn't a bad suggestion, but yeah, I mean, obviously the fact that Chaos Space Marines still are a while away, it seems, from getting any kind of additional love is frustrating. But yeah, no, I just Beast Snaggers look amazing. They're going to be great. They are going to be great.
Exactly.
I hear the sound of Frosties hitting my plate.
Lovely. Moving on to Archon John. He said, I like the lore updates for AOS, and I'm waiting for the plucky humans with pitchforks faction that isn't 25-year-old Cities of Sigmar models. I can see it in my future at some point. And I guess that's something I reiterated earlier. I think Cities of Sigmar are such a fantastic range, but they do really need a bit of an overhaul. What's your take?
Well, I lost you there for a moment, Phil, but I'm hoping that the recording mechanism we use is filled in the blanks. But I think what you said was, what do you think of the new fancy humans with pitchforks? And yeah, look, I mean, the Cities of Sigmar stuff is interesting, but it always felt like a kind of, compromise, right? It's like, we got all these old Warhammer Fantasy minis. Here's a bunch of rules to smush them all together and make something interesting out of them, because Peachy did that with his Age of Sigmar collection, and they kind of went, yeah, that kind of works, Peachy. Yeah, fine. We're going to actually just do that as a thing. But regardless of that, I think, actually giving us a proper human faction beyond the forces of chaos, because obviously, as we'll remember from Warcry, we got lots of different flavors of human in Warcry, the different kind of chaos war bands that made up, the forces of humanity, but to actually see a more kind of force of order, witch hunter, or just general kind of human force that are done to a more appropriate scale and feature more a kind of ragtag bunch of combatants would be really greatly appreciated. I again, humans in the world of Age of Sigmar sounds incredible, because you just think humans in 40k have got it bad. Humans in Age of Sigmar, I feel have it on a completely different level, as it were, because it's it's everything is massive and fantastical and crazy, and they live in constant fear and peril. Not that the Imperium is much better within the 40k setting, but there is a certain level of mundane bureaucracy to 40k that allows humans a certain level of security, whereas I don't imagine humans in Age of Sigmar have the same privileges. But who knows? What do you reckon, Phil?
I think you're right. Most, the vast majority of humanity is completely blissfully unaware of anything outside of their hive city. So I imagine that's not really the case in AOS, and that you're constantly fighting off dragons, demons, or whatever else is knocking on your city's door. So yeah, you're right. They probably do have a tougher life.
Yeah, and again, they've released new human models for Age of Sigmar very sporadically. I know they started off with Silver Tower, where they added the War Priest with his little Griffin Hound, and then they've obviously now done more with the latest Warhammer Quest range with Curse City. So yeah, more of that. I want to see more humans in Age of Sigmar for sure.
Cool. We got another one from Senpai McElroy. He says, after the beautiful Gaunt's Ghost, the orcs are a close second of the best thing of the week. Really excited to get some. Hopefully we'll be able to get the box, as long as Games Workshop has made more than 4 of them this time. Look forward to seeing the rest of the range, and especially their rules.
I mean, which box are you referring to? Is he referring to the Gaunt's box or the Orc box?
I presume the Orc box. Well, either, to be honest. I mean, he must be the Orc box, because that's the limited edition one. They did say the Gaunt Ghost isn't limited edition and will be available sort of forever.
Yeah, the Orc box is an interesting one, because they were very specific in so much as they were saying that's going to be limited availability, but they reassured people that don't worry, these will be available separately in the future, but I imagine they'll be available separately at a much more increased cost. So I do feel, obviously, if you are interested and you're an Orc player, getting that box out of the gate is a worthwhile thing to do. Be interested to know what the second-hand market or the kind of scalping market is for that one particularly. I feel like Sisters definitely sold super quick, probably more quicker than I would have imagined was possible for, the amount of maybe Sisters players that are out there. But I think the thing is with the Sisters one is, it was such a hotly anticipated range that came at such a very specific time, and so many people have Imperium forces, so you can add it in. I'd be interested to see with Beast Snaggers whether they have the same problem, because I don't think the Beast Snaggers release is anywhere close to the same level of gravitas as the Sisters were.
I imagine that 90% of Orc players will be picking it up because they really want it. I think the amount of uptake in new people that want to just play Orcs will be getting it will be a lot lower. I mean, I sure there will be some people that have Space Marine Army, Guard Army, or whatever, and they'll be like, oh, I fancy doing Orcs, I'll try and get this. But I don't think it will have the same uptake as people seeing the Sisters one and then jumping over from one faction to another. Because I think Sisters, as you said, is like a combination of, it's an old faction that has been in metal, is a brand new release, it's all phenomenal, it's fantastic minis. And I think, and the fact that it ties in easier with Imperium armies will make a lot of Imperium players go, I want to do Sisters now. And that's why I think that one sort of sold like hotcakes. I think it will sell well, but probably not on that same level.
Yeah, I mean, I wandered into a Games Workshop store the other day, and they still had the Lumineth Realm Lord box set kicking around. I mean, so there are similar types of box sets that, obviously didn't achieve the same level of success. I mean, I was surprised that the Lumineth didn't go over as well as some things, but again, that's just Age of Sigmar, right? It's never going to quite hit the same
True. I mean, I guess if it's in a store as well, you've got the kind of whole lockdown problem of maybe someone did want to buy it, but that shop's been closed for the best part of 6 months.
True. I'm just saying they didn't have any copies of Curse City or any Sisters of Battle boxes kicking around. That's all I'll tell you.
Fair enough. Yeah. Moving on to Fringe World Studio, he says quite simply, one game is enough for my pocket to handle at the moment. Smiley face.
There you go. I assume that one game is Warhammer 40,000, in which case, obviously, you still have quite deep pockets by all accounts. But
no, exactly. And I mean, that is, we talked about AOS. We've sort of hinted that we do want to get into it, but ultimately, I think for me, it's less about the ability to buy stuff, although obviously buying a whole new army is quite expensive unless you do sort of the start collecting way of playing, which is one of the new things that they did say they were improving. So maybe they're taking more of a crusade style system approach to that, which does sound really interesting. But yeah, it's a lot, but to me, it's the time and effort to paint up an army is just so time consuming. Unless I was to just go, I'm just going to use contrast paints, make it tabletop standard, not care about it as much. But I find that quite difficult to do.
Yeah, I understand that side of things. I mean, I obviously don't share your concerns in that respect. I'm much happier just getting stuff tabletop ready. But yeah, I mean, again, it's interesting that we've spoken as much as we have about Age of Sigmar, given the fact that we are an exclusively 40k podcast. But again, it's one of those things that we felt it was relevant under the current circumstances to discuss it. But do not fear, listeners. We are not looking to diverge into talking about Age of Sigmar on the regular. It's just interesting thing that's happening within the hobby that seems worthy of discussion. Have we got another question, Phil?
We do have an actual question. This person's posted twice. He's given us an unofficial 5-star review and a question for both of us. Which would you like?
I mean, well, the question's probably a great place to start.
Well, let's start there then. So we've got Great House Games. He says, question for the show. Why do people think that beast snaggers are more like snake bites? Phil was mentioning that he thought it was odd that the pain boss had mechanical augmentations because the snake bites avoid using tech. Lots of the beast snagger models have cyborg limbs. Interesting, use cyborg like orc, cyborg rather than cyber. Cyborg limbs.
So in terms of the fact that, so the question is around the fact that, again, was that a question? It sounded more like a statement. Were we wrong to assert that they were more snakebite? Or
he says, why do people think that the beast snaggers are more like snake bites? And I think there's a lot of association with it. And in fact, on the previews, they did say snake bites have a lot of beast snaggers. So it's like almost a separate a distinct sub-faction to a culture, but there's a lot of cross-pollination between them. And it's weird because they're not like regiments of guard or anything like that. You need to think about it almost more like Phobos armor and Gravis armor. It's like some chapters might lean into one more than the other, but they're not exclusive to one specific chapter. So beast snaggers are something that's universal that all orcs can be or have, or it's an interest, basically. It's not a faction in its own right, which I think was the initial confusion of how they were first previewed, because that seemed to be like the thing that it was. It's like, these are new type of orcs.
Yeah, I think Games Workshop have done a bit of a not a retcon or even a 360 on the snake bites, but they've definitely looked at what orcs are in the confines of normal 40k and looked at where they want to take that range. And the beast snaggers are an amalgamation of the kind of mechanized elements, but also the kind of more feral, more savage orc elements. And ultimately, I suppose if they leaned too heavy into those savage orc aspects, if they had them riding boars, if they had them with traditional weapons, if they were wielding bows and arrows and and big clubs or whatever, then all of a sudden it really starts to sort of take on the aesthetic of Age of Sigmar. And I guess what they're trying to do is kind of keep it still distinctly 40k. and if you listen to what people were saying a few weeks ago, there was an argument that maybe they hadn't achieved that with some of these beast dagger models. But I think as now you've seen the whole range, it all sort of starts to make more sense. But yeah, look, I do understand where you're coming from in the sense that, why are they considered more, affiliated with Snakebites? Because that's what Games Workshop is saying. Whether or not that's how you want to play them, then I guess that's entirely up to you. But yeah, I think Phil pretty much hit the nail on the head there by talking about it's more about interest. I show a sympathy towards hanging out with squigs, and as a result, I'm bigger and stronger because reasons. But yeah, I don't know. That's pretty much all I can kind of say on that. Are you wanting to read out the non-official 5-star review, Phil?
Well, we could do. I mean, it is nice. It's not an official one though, but he says
not an official one. Oh my god!
He does say 5-star review. It's not, because you need to do it on Apple iTunes, for example. But we will read it out anyway because it's so good. He says, great show, great humor, great topics, great hosts. I like that both of you will have times where you can tell you give your initial reaction to something, but inevitably the other has a great point to make counter. Most of the time it leads to arguments instead of the first time trying to defend a quick reaction. Keep it up.
Well, that's nice. I mean, again, we try and be ourselves, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you make assumptions and assertions based on what you see, and then you hear other perspectives, and it helps you question your own point of view. And I think that's the thing. We try not to be too. I personally, anyway, try not to be too baked into one specific perspective. I have very specific views on certain things, but. I try and be open to others and try and be adaptable as much as possible. And I think that's one of the great virtues of the show is that, me and Phil in a lot of instances are, as we were in the case of reading through the rules for that High Lord of Terror earlier. I was hearing it for the first time and I made some sweeping assertions earlier about, is she, should she be of this sort of caliber of character? And actually, as you go on, you go, she's not too bad. I can kind of see how it makes sense, So again, but I think that's the core of it. I think people like debate because at the end of the day, it's when you just got two people who just agree with each other all the time. It's just a bit bland, isn't it? It's just not interesting.
Well, that would make for a very easy show.
It would be done in half the time.
Exactly, it'd be done in half time. I was going to say you're very much like that guy. The change my mind meme, but with the exception of Dark Angels Primaris in the inner circle, then you're like, no.
Well, I just haven't heard a compelling enough argument. You know what I mean? Other than Games Workshop want to do it to make money, fine, cool, go for it. Like that's the thing. I don't mind people using Primaris in their Dark Angel armies. I don't mind them using them in Deathwing. I just choose not to because I don't understand. Of all the armies, it doesn't make any sense to me, but that's my problem.
Well, that's fair enough. I've got another good one that seems appropriate. Right. It's Cadian Sergeant Steel. What do you think you might be wanting to talk about?
I mean, it's a mystery to me. I mean, how could I ever guess? Could it be the Cadian upgrade sprue by any chance?
It might be.
Oh my god. What a shocker. Please tell me more.
Hold on 1 second. There's a big helicopter flying overhead.
Can we hear that helicopter? Is it coming through?
I mean, it's pretty loud. Can you hear it?
I can hear it, yeah, which probably indicates that others are now hearing it. I don't know if I'm going to leave this in or not. This is going to be one of those moments where...
this is what happens when you live under a flight path. Fantastic, isn't it?
Do you live under a flight path?
Well, not a proper one, but we do live near an airport. Well, not even that near, but I mean, obviously, helicopters every so often will fly over. So
there you go.
But it's gone now, so I'll carry on.
I mean, it's not gone. It's just not there.
Well, no, it hasn't disappeared. It's not the Bermuda Triangle. We do sometimes have, because of the area I live in, you do sometimes have like a police helicopter flying low, or clearly on the lookout for some
reprobates.
Reprobates, people of loose morals on the run of some kind. So you get that sometimes as well. But anyway,
the mean streets.
Moving on, Cadian Sergeant Steel, as an avid Cadian player, I think the upgrade sprue was exactly what we needed. Wait, what is he saying? We now have all the special weapon options in the standard box without buying a command squad kit, and helps to replace the out of production Forge World special weapon squads and other Cadian upgrade kits. Good point, because they now do the like the respirator helmets, which was a Forge World kit. The only thing missing are the backpacks, which I find very valuable to add to the models. Shotguns would have been nice too, but I understand why they might be discontinuing those, because you've never seen them on the table. On my 6+ years of playing 40k, yes, veterans with shotguns might not exist in the new rules unless they do a new kit. He says, for more my opinion, if you're bored, check out my latest YouTube video. Oh, he snuck in a shameless plug, but we don't mind. As for AOS, it's super cool looking, and everyone who plays it says it's a lot of fun. However, I have held off because of hobby time and commitment. I one day want to have a Seraphon army to smash my opponents with cute lizards and space laser gems.
I mean, cute lizards, I suppose, is an interesting statement in and of itself. But yeah, no, I don't understand Cadian Sergeant Steel. You didn't get the memo. As a Cadian player, you're supposed to not like the upgrade sprue. It's supposed to bring you great pain and sorrow, but clearly you didn't get the memo.
To have it, to get out a tiny violin and play it for him.
Yeah. Oh no, we got some support. No, I mean, look, again, fantastic perspective from a obviously, seasoned Cadian player, and it's amazing that obviously you're now happy that you've got something to add to your collection, and I think that's great, right? I mean, and as I said multiple times, it's going to really add a lot of character and a lot of flair to your army, because at the moment a bunch of different people all looking identical is pretty boring in terms of more the kind of hobby side of things. So yeah, I suppose we'll just have to go over to your YouTube channel for more information. I assume it's also called Cadian Sergeant Steel, the YouTube channel, but I don't know. Maybe next time you do a cheap plug, maybe take the time to remind people what your channel's called.
I mean, I'm sure that's what it's going to be called.
Certainly.
If not, then you're a fool.
Yeah, exactly. You really mucked up there.
Demoted from sergeant to, I don't know, officer. Private. You're a private.
Private sergeant. No, private steel.
Anyway, Cadian private steel. Yeah.
Cadian private steel. Yeah, there we go. Cool. We got any more, or are we done?
I mean, there are more, but we could go on. We can make this last all night if you really want to. Should we have? Should we have a look on? Oh, okay. Should we have a look on the old Facebooks and see what they've said there, just to mix it up a bit?
You can have a look on the old Facebooks. I reckon we'll do, as much as it pains me to say so, just because I know it's now getting on quite a bit. Let's do one more. Make it a special one.
Okay. Oh my God, we've got so many. Have we got so many? We've got quite a few. I'll read out some names, and I'll let you pick the name that you want to.
Oh, don't, because that'll make others angry at me. Just you pick one, and it'll be fine. Then we can pretend that maybe they didn't comment in time for like our recording thing. Anonymity is key in this situation, mate.
True. Okay, I'm trying to find. Here's someone who I don't think we've read out before. Tom. Because obviously, Tom. Well, I could read out his full name, but I don't want to.
No, don't read out his full
particularly.
Although we do read out his full names when we do the 5-star reviews, don't we? So
yeah, but they tend to be like Burger Mc cheesy face. Like they're not.
Yeah. When they're on Apple, but when they're Facebook reviews, we give out their names.
Oh well,
maybe we should reconsider that policy.
Yes, maybe. I mean, to be honest, it's if someone wanted to find out his surname, they could just go onto our Facebook page, give it a like while you're there, and check it out. So it's not difficult.
I worry that you've made a thing of it now, and you've made it worse.
So, so long as they're liking the page as they're doing it, I think
that's all that matters. Basically,
they've got to get those numbers up.
Exactly. They've given us their consent at this point. That's what we're saying.
Exactly. Anyway, fine. Tom, surname unknown, middle name unknown. If you want to find out, you can Go online and look at it, but don't forget that like. Right, Tom says, I'm a bit on the fence on the upgrade sprue. See, I found one that was a bit controversial. On one hand, it's new plastic for Guard, which is always good. On the other hand, this stopgap measure isn't what the Guard needs. The Cadian sprue should be retired and replaced because it's old hag. Off to that retirement home you go. That's me ad-libbing. Rather than extended for a few more years. If they have done something different, different helmets rather than Cadians, then it would have been something else like Valhallans, Talon, Mordian, Vostorians, and Praetorian heads. Loving the Tanef models though. And he then says, edit. Props to GW though, not a single Space Marine model for 40k, which actually, in hindsight, is pretty impressive for them.
I mean, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's worth acknowledging that, you know, they didn't show off a single Space Marine model, which is an incredible accomplishment for, indeed. There we go. No, actually, that's not right, because they showed Grey Knights at the end.
It wasn't even a model, though. It was a bit of artwork.
Well, it was a Dread Knight, wasn't it? In a misty thing. It was there. It was in a video. I'm just saying. But anyway, regardless of that, yeah, no new models for Space Marines, which is quite an accomplishment. Yeah, look, I mean, I feel like I made my feelings quite clear on the Cadian upgrade sprue, and I'm much more in the camp of I like it, but I do understand where the frustration lies. But it really depends on what the strategy is for the Astra Militarum. If we assert or assume that Games Workshop are intending to release a new range of guardsmen that are not Cadians, then this is an entirely appropriate step to give that Cadian kit more relevancy moving forwards. If it is that the Cadians themselves are going to be replaced in the future, well, then that becomes quite interesting, and that becomes a completely different set of problems. But again, trying to approach this from a glass half full perspective, I believe that this Cadian upgrade sprue gives the Cadians what they need to keep them relevant for longer, and then ultimately it's then going to mean that when new guardsmen come into effect, that we're not going to necessarily feel the fatigue or see things be outdated as they might otherwise be, because there's a lot of people with a lot of Cadians. So
yeah.
you may as well keep
I will say I've skimmed through all the other comments, and they are all pretty positive to the Cadian upgrade sprue. So not as much negativity as I've seen elsewhere.
Well, and credit due to Tom, though, right? Like, I don't want to suggest that you shouldn't be negative if you feel negative about it. I mean, you know, you should own that perspective. I think that is utterly fair that you're not impressed with it because, you know, you wanted more. And I think that is a fair expectation. You know, at the end of the day, if you're a guard player and you want cool new guard stuff, you want more than this. And I get that. And I, too, if I was a dedicated guard player, would want to see more. But I think, you know, again, you just got to hope that one day that day will come. You know, everyone gets their moment with these things. And, you know, as a Craftworld player, it's been a very long time since I've been rewarded with anything really that interesting. I mean, the last Craftworld update we got was a Spirit Seer back in...
Got your Banshees, remember?
Oh, yes, of course.
And your Lady.
And yes, and obviously Jane's are, yeah. So they came along. But prior to that, we had like Spirit Seers, a few Wraith units and things, which were cool. But, you know, I mean, we're still rocking the same avatar from the 1980s or whatever it is, or like the early 1990s.
That's surely getting redone, like when with the Elder Codex.
It has to. But that's the thing. There's so much in the, you know, Warp Spiders came out in 93 or something. It's like, it's that thing where like so much, you know, and again, I don't want to turn this into one of those debates where I'm like, well, you know, we got a worse Craftworld Aeldari, but it is that thing. It's like, you know, I, as a predominantly maining Craftworlds has made me super resilient to this sort of situation where the range is not being refreshed often enough. You just kind of, I don't know, I'm a bit punch drunk at this point. I'm just like, whatever.
Well, yeah, you do get used to it. But I do think, yeah, we said it last time, like the three oldest armies are probably Elder, Guard, and Orcs, I would say.
Orcs
maybe not
now,
not as much now, especially. But if that's the direction they're going in, and orcs are getting a bit of a refresh or just new models added to that line, that is potentially a good sign for Elder, especially because they're Xenos and Guard. I'm trying to think of anything else that's like super old and outdated. I think things like Tyranids are mostly okay.
Tyranids are mostly fine. Hey, listen to that. I think I've got a helicopter going over my head now. Can you hear that?
No.
Oh, well, there you go. Maybe my echo cancelling's a bit better than yours.
Oh, damn it.
That's a flipping Chinook as well. I can hear it. It creates a weird sort of air effect that's very strange. It sort of makes you feel a bit uneasy. Anyway, yeah, I get it on the Cadian front. But yeah, I mean, to say that something is better than nothing is a bit sort of flippant, but it's not true.
Fair enough.
And look, if the overriding sentiment is positive towards it, then great, and it's lovely to be reassured that I am sharing the perspective of a majority of people. But that doesn't mean that I feel like this individual is wrong for being underwhelmed by it.
I mean, imagine if Plastic Guardians just gave you like an upgrade sprue of just some heads and some weapons. Would you be happy with that?
If they gave me an upgrade sprue that let me make them into Storm Guardians, yeah, of course, I'd love that. I'd absolutely love it, because literally at the moment to get Storm Guardians, I have to buy the really awful Black Guardian kit from 2003, which is a fine cast kit as well. It's terrible.
So what are Storm Guardians exactly?
They're the combat variants. The normal Guardian defenders have the shuriken catapults. The Storm Guardians have the sword and pistol. Mm-hmm. But in order to get the Storm Guardians, you have to buy Black Guardian upgrade kits, which is a fine cast kit based on a metal kit from not even 2003, actually, when I think about it. I think it was 2002. It came out, Storm Guardians came out around the time of the Eye of Terror campaign.
Some time ago.
Some time ago, indeed. So yeah, so it's one of those things that, like, yeah, God, I'd love it. I'd absolutely love it if they gave me upgrades to change like the heads and maybe add a little bit more decorative flair to them and give them special weapons and all the rest of it. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if they did that for the Guardians. I think it'd be a really worthwhile thing to do. Because the Guardian kit actually at its core is okay. It's all right. It just needs a little bit more personality. And I think that upgrade sprue kind of satisfies that. But, you know, obviously if the Guardians get a complete update, I'll be very happy with that as well. But I'd rather them give me new warp spiders or new swooping hawks before they give me new Guardians, because the kit is fundamentally fine. But at the end of the day, I'm just going to be happy. You know what I'd actually like to see of all of the things? I'd like to see new Rangers. That would be my preferred thing.
Or maybe because they did give you that one model from Black Stone Fortress, so maybe they'll do some more.
There'd just be a unit of that, just, you know, the same Monopose one over and over again.
Well, no, I just mean it in terms of, so last episode we were talking about the spool of wire that was potentially a Krieg engineer, or what we all assumed was actually the Rain and Rouse rattling snipers. So if they use those as a basis, as like an initial model, get the feelers out there, and now they're doing a whole sniper squad for Guard based on the Blackstone Fortress ones, it then makes sense that maybe the other models from that kit are also coming out to be full squads. And the only other one really was the there was a Kroot character, so maybe we'll get more Kroot. And then the other one was the Rangers, so maybe we'll get a new Ranger squad in plastic based on that aesthetic that they've...
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah.
I'd be happy with Rangers. I'd be happy with anything at this stage. I think, you know, yeah, the Avatar is necessary. But yeah, but in terms of the Guard side of things, in terms of the you know, in terms of the Cadians, yeah, see what's going to happen, right? But yeah, I can understand why it wouldn't be super stoked on it. But I like it. I really like it, and you know, I think I've made that perfectly clear up to this point. But you know, just because I like it doesn't mean you have to.
Yeah, I've come around to it. It's...
No, when I said you, I meant the broad, the listener, not you specifically.
But the royal you.
I don't know if that works, but sure. Yeah, the royal you. Cool. Should we end this? Because it feels like we've descended. I mean, we've started talking about, helicopters and all sorts of other nonsense. It feels like it's pretty much wrapping itself up quite nicely at this point.
If you're not editing that out, then yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's very unlikely I'm going to edit that out at this point because, I thought it added some character to it,
No, it really does.
Exactly. Lets them know that we're not lording it up in some sort of fancy studio space, that you're just sat in a cupboard out in your garden.
That's exactly it. I'm going to now be put away for another week, and then you're going to wheel me out again next week.
That's it. After I stop recording, our friendship is yet again postponed until this time next week.
Yes, I look forward to seeing you in a week's time.
Exactly, indeed. And I won't, but I'll pretend I do for the sake of the show.
No, fair enough. Fair enough. Oh,
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.